and there is the tiger. Is it the tiger?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's the
yes,
tiger. That's why we are having the special guest as well.
yes,
Excellent,
yes.
excellent. We are having a
Just
tiger.
one moment because they cannot hear you.
Oh, why they can't hear me?
Because I think I messed up something.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Think Chichu will be pretty much loud in a moment. Give him a little bit to warm up. And by the way, I don't want to flex, but I have been preparing 5 days.
5 days, wow.
Yes, because this is one of the most important collaboration and the stuff that I want to make as best as possible, because this topic is pretty much neglected, at least from my standpoint, and nobody discussed that in a let's say serious way, and in the meantime in a informative and educational way.
Yes, right.
And that's why I would like to make it as best as possible. Okay, I have the cameras set up, therefore from my side I am ready.
Okay.
When I am super ready, and there is the stuff. Antivirus needs to update, the graphic card needs to update, the browser is frozen, there's all of the stuff. That's why
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is on the last moment, right? It is not something like that you are working a few hours before, but on the last moment.
Yes, I know, right?
It is
It's
pretty
crazy.
funny. Yeah, it's pretty funny sometimes. Okay, everything should be okay, and now we can officially start. Are you ready? Ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much for accepting the invitation, my dear friend. I'm super excited about today's collaboration because we just have the first collaboration that we are just making a little bit of introduction, to put it this way, and this time will be a little bit more focused about the stuff that I promised to the viewers, your viewers and my viewers as well, that will be going into psychology and especially the research, because we'll be talking about some of the research that are pretty much important, pretty much maybe not that much known, and in the meantime we'll be explaining this from your practical experience, because you are a psychologist, you are a coach, you are a player, you are a streamer and a great educator. Therefore, I'm super happy we can have you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me again, and we're pretty excited about this talk.
Yeah, I guess it would be great, and I'm super happy that you agreed, because you are very, very friendly, and very quickly, let's say, we just managed the schedule. Therefore, I'm happy about this as well. And today's topic, or today's, let's say, title of the collaboration is Chess Research and Studies plus Psychology, Tips to Develop Potential and Coaching. We'll be going with these topics, but with more focus this time over the research, scientific papers, scientific studies. All of this we'll be trying to put into the, let's say, spotlight, and in the meantime to discuss this a little bit as well. What about that? Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. Let's go.
Okay, excellent. Therefore, let's start with a little bit of introduction, because the first part will be a little bit of chill out. If you can introduce yourself a little bit more with the side, especially with the side that we'll be talking about, a bit more from the psychological, let's say, part, if I can say that.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Fruzsina, and well, I have 2 degrees in psychology. I have a bachelor degree, and I also have another one in work and organizational psychology, which is really similar to sport psychology. Because I thought about becoming a sport psychologist before, but there is no such course in Hungary so far as I know. And if I am right, it could continue from work and organizational psychology, because this is similar, if you think about it. If players think look at their sport as their work, then it is kind of similar. And I have been playing chess for I think 17 years. Wow, that makes me feel old.
One a little bit of inaccuracy. How can you play for what number was that? Sorry,
17 years.
17 years. How can you play for 17 years if you are 16? A little bit inaccuracy, but let it put it this way. It's okay. It's okay.
Yes, well. Yes, and I am also a woman with a master, and but with my previous coach, who I'm not working with anymore, sadly. We always liked chess psychology, and he always tried to show this part of chess as well. And whenever I was in a tournament, or generally speaking, so I'm really interested in this subject as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm really happy that you have such a great knowledge, such a great skills, and this is actually this was, because now it's realizing right now, my dream to find the person who is very skilled in psychology and at chess. And I was something like that. Finally, I will just find this person. Looks like I have found it. Thank you very much. And now let's start with the a little bit of let's say warm up, a little bit of chill out, because we'll be going into the a little bit more challenging tasks, challenging topics slowly. But first, let's talk about chess in a general sense. What is chess? And now, as a warm up, I'll just give you a little bit of task, a little bit of stimuli. Probably you know from the psychology, right? That there is some kind of stimuli that will boost your creativity. At least I hope so. You have a little bit, something like 2 to 3 minutes for answering one of the part of the question. I'll be going into the next one. Okay?
Okay, you're making me feel nervous.
No. I want to make you a little bit more, let's say, warm up, right? Something like, because in a moment, if the topics would be a little bit more challenging, if you have the warm up, it would be great. Of course, take notice that I am taking care about everything. If you do not feel comfortable with anything, I'll try to adjust to your needs. No problem.
Okay.
First topic is the topic that is pretty much warm up, as I just mentioned. What is chess? And there is just 4, let's say, points. We'll be talking about chess as a game, as a sport, as an art, and as a science. And very briefly, 2 to 3 minutes, no more than that, because it is just a little bit of warm up. What is chess as a game to you? How can you see chess as a game?
Well, chess is a game for me because but this is some sort of it's a way to relax and have some fun and play in my free time. Like one of my students said it, and I can totally relate to it. Sometimes I don't even want to do anything deeper. I just want to push the pieces on the board without thinking deeper in it. And well, maybe my answer is a little bit too fast, but that's what I would say.
That's the way we would like to have it. It's perfect timing and perfect pace. Excellent. Now, what is chess? If we are talking about chess as a sport.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a sport because it takes a lot of mental and physical energy sometimes. If you have to sit there for 3 to 6 hours or even more at a chessboard, and well, you again, it's a competitive game, right? So that's one thing, and it requires preparation, just like other sports. I would say you can warm up just like in other sports by playing a few puzzles before the game, for example. And well, I think you can yes, you also need to maintain your body by eating good food, and of course sleep before games, just like before any other sport event.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just add a little bit of about the sport because sometimes it's not that much expressed, let's say explicitly. Most often the time, if some people say that chess is not a sport, it is rather a game, I ask them if they know how much energy is drained after the serious competitive game, a chess tournament. If you're playing, for example, with masters, right? Some like 3 to 5 hours game, how much energy is drained, and then I ask them if this criteria of draining energy may be related to the sport, and they say absolutely. And after that, I show them some of the, let's say, papers and some of the analysis about the mental draining, and they say, "Oh, I didn't know that," and that's why we are here to tell it. Okay, and what about what about chess as an art?
Well, it's interesting because I think well, of course, if there is a beautiful combination, it can, if you see a beautiful combination on the board, a beautiful motif, then that is something that you can admire, and well, of course, have some joy in it. But on the other hand, well, actually, people who are not familiar with chess, or they don't know how to play chess, they might not see it beautiful. But we chess players, of course, I mean, who can't who can say that they have never loved a position before a beautiful motive, a beautiful puzzle? Because I think and they are not even chess players.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree. And sometimes there is some kind of paradox solution, right? Some like the solution that nobody takes seriously because it's some like counterintuitive. And this is some like, oh my goodness, this guy like Shakir Mamedov recently sacrificed all of the pieces and just won the game. Completely
Yes, right.
opposite for the, let's say, rules that we are sticking most of the time. And that's why it's really, really impressive. And I fully agree with you as well. And what about chess as the science? How could you see chess as a science?
Well, it could be a science because, well, you also need to study it a lot before improving in it, and before, well, this is how you can know more a lot about it, and this is how you can find new tactics, let's say, or new strategies in chess. If you study more, then this is how you can also find new ways, similar to science, right? I mean, if you study it and then you find, oh wait, that could work as well, and you can uh, well, experiment this way. You can also do this little experiments. Also, it's a little bit different from science because here first you have to try it out, and then see how it works. Unlike in science, but indeed there is a lot of theory, just like in science.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yes, I guess it's right because in chess and in science we have so-called theory, and we need to testify it, and we need to practice how much the theory is related to the reality and how much the changes are needed. And that's why theory is either in science, either in chess. Therefore, it's some like mutual love, and therefore I'm pretty happy because in the meantime I am a little bit of scientific guy. I am not working in the university, but rather my soul is just attracted into this type of, let's say, activity, and therefore I am just sometimes creating some of the interesting theory and share with my audience, and they some like that. Thinker teacher, how did you come up over that? I just was thinking about it, wanted to share it with you. And that's why I guess it's pretty much very, very interesting that we can see just from some of the perspectives, right? And now let's go into another part, because if you just started with what is chess, now it would be a great idea to go a little bit deeper with the question, or maybe with the statement, why playing chess is beneficial? Why playing chess is beneficial? What gives us chess? Except of just playing some like randomly. If somebody from the let's say outside is looking at us, oh, they are just pushing the wooden pieces. What's going on? What is good with this? And another point, as you are just warmed up, would be a little bit, let's say, related to the previous one. The task is pretty much similar. I will just give you a little bit of, let's say, tips, and you will be based on that. You can just develop that and extend it as much as you wish this time. Is that okay?
Okay.
First point is chess develops memory. How could you explain it? How could you comment on that?
Well, I mean, you have to remember a lot of things in chess. So by that you can expand your memory definitely, because you have to remember the theories, the opening theories, tactics, the basic motifs. You have to remember, or even end games, and middle game strategies. You have to remember, and well, of course, you have to have a good capacity in your memory to handle all of these. So and I suppose that's how you can improve your memory if you try to expand it this way. So I would say it can help with the memory.
Yeah, and probably we'll be talking a little bit later about expanding the memory, and probably there will be the questions from either your chat or mine. How much memory do I need to install in my brain? 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes? Because I want to have downloaded all of the 7 pieces table bases, right?
Right.
And there will be the links probably for the sponsors, and the sponsors will be, let's say, giving us the access to the endgame part that we can download into our memory. Of course, jokes aside, just a little bit of summary. Yes, chess helps to strengthen the memory, and in the meantime, there is the two parts of the memory: the short term and long term. Right? If you can a little bit expand on the long term memory, why long term memory is that much important for chess players, and how they use that? A little bit of, let's say, explanation.
Oh, well, definitely. Long-term memory is very. I would like to put my opening theories because, well, of course, I don't want to just know the opening for one game, but for later as well, so I can add to it. And well, of course, if there is it's in the long-term memory, then it is easier to remember later. Why the short-term memory is more short-term, as the name suggests. So it might be, for example, if you play a game. The amateur Magnus Carlsen can be different in this, but if I play a game, then I will remember for a short while, but after that it will fade. But of course, it can be different for others. But the long-term memory is more important in chess, in my opinion. It's yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree. And just for our viewers, because sometimes the metaphors and analogies may be helpful, long-term memory is something like a hard drive, right? We are just saving the data, and even after, let's say, turning off the computer or resetting the computer, the data is stored. The data does not disappear. And the short-term memory is something like the RAM don't access memory, the memory that works only before we just turn off the computer. After we turn off or reset the computer, all of the data are deleted, or the data are disappearing, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, in a moment I'll be looking for the chat as well, because there probably may be some questions from the chat. If there are some questions from your chat as well, you can address it at any time. And the first question is from R45, from our friend, and he says, I've heard a thought that when you learn chess seriously, there is no space in the brain for anything else. How much how much BS is that? What would you say about it? Is it possible to overload the memory? Overload the memory is possible. If you just, for example, learning all of the variations, all of the end games, all of the combinations, and we are just all of the time learning something new. Is it possible to overload it?
I would say yes, because if you just study facts and just base facts without understanding what's happening, obviously at some point you're and you don't use it, of course, that's the other thing, then obviously your memory will want to get rid of the useless stuff, right, from your memory. So just imagine you study all day theories, and well, um, sooner or later it will fade. But if you put it into practice and you slow down a little bit, actually that's more productive than studying a whole bunch of theories and strategies. And well, even other things in your life. So for example, if you are studying somewhere and playing chess, it can work together. You can remember what is, as long as you also put it in practice and you go deeper into it than just knowing facts, because facts can easily fade. But if you know how to use something, or you also put it into practice, then of course it will stay there. And well, it's a slower process, and it will take some time, but indeed it works that way, and it is not really worth it to just tire your brain with a lot of facts.
And maybe it is even important to add another element, that if you are trying to remember the, let's say, raw data, if this is the, let's say, computer system analogy, it will not be remembered too long. It will not be in the rotation system. But if you are just understanding the stuff and we are just emotionally engaged into that, the brain is just making the connections that are way more reliable, and they can stay forever, right, at some point.
Yes, right.
Okay, let's go into the next one. Chess develops memory is just done. Now chess improves concentration, or some can say focus. How would you comment on that? Is it true? Is it not true? How can we do it to make it chess improves concentration?
Well, I think it depends, because of course, if you just play bullet, which is also chess, then maybe concentration won't be improved that much. If you play classical games over the board, or well, probably over the board. Over the board is more effective than playing it online. Then yes, I think your focus can be improved. And well, of course, if you have to sit down and be there at the game, it will improve. But I think it's too vague to say chess will improve the focus, our focus, and how well we can pay attention, because there are shorter time controls, and there I don't think it improves a lot.
Maybe I need to state a little bit more precise. Classical chess helps to improve concentration and focus, because the very fast time control probably are not that much efficient, as you just mentioned. And that is a very good point, because most often the time, if we are just playing the games that last for 1 minute, it is rather the reflexes, right? We are just training reflexes and the time of reactions, right? How quickly we can react for the danger, how quickly we can discover there is a check, there is the piece hanging, and so on. Therefore, I just need to make it a little bit more precise. Playing classical chess helps improving concentration, and probably will be going on the same track. Is that correct?
Yes, right.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Let's go into another one. Chess teaches responsibility.
Well, I mean, sooner or later you will learn that if you are careless and you leave your pieces hanging, that there will be consequences. So you have to be more careful, and that would take give you also some responsibility, right? Because you will learn that you have to take responsibility for your actions, and you can't just leave your pieces hanging on the board. So yes, I would say yes.
Yeah, and especially if anybody wants to, let's say, make progress, right? Because if somebody is not pretty much focused on the progress and he's just playing, let's say, without any goals, something like just playing just because of spending the time, and he's not focused over getting better, getting rid of the mistakes, probably at this point, responsibility may be not the biggest factor that is being developed, but most of the time, if players are playing in the competitive environment, some like tournaments, matches, and so on, most often the time, as far as I know, it teaches them responsibility, and it is especially valid for the kids, right? Because the kids needs to learn from the young age, because then it will help them not just on the board, but off the board as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go another one.
I agree.
Excellent.
Wait one moment.
Yeah.
I have someone in chat. Dr. Tripchan says we shouldn't disclose the selection. Yes, maybe the people who have higher concentrations are more successful in chess, with chess not having any effect on it. So he says people who have better concentration get better at chess, but it's not necessarily the other way around, that chess improves the concentration. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it may be possible as well, because at this point, if it is a little bit, let's say, the same as chess attracts the people with the scientific minds, and scientific minds are looking for the intellectual endeavor, and most often they choose chess, right? Or they find chess, and therefore it's some like mutual love, if I can say that. And therefore, yes, that may be correct, but I mean in a little bit global sense, right? If you're just trying to promote chess, and for example, we want to make the chess in a positive light, probably this could be one of the reasons that we can say that chess teaches responsibility, because if we do not take care about our pieces, about our plans, and we are not, let's say, we want to get better, probably we will not get that far. But of course, if somebody is responsible and he's, let's say, having the high level of responsibility, probably chess may not improve it anymore, because it would be something like original on the high level. This is the same analogy if we'll be talking about, let's say, the runners, right? The sprinters, the runners. If they are just having a good muscle and they have been running all of the time, for example, for the 10 or 15 years, after that they get into the sport, at some point it will not be that much progress if they have been doing this for 10 or 15 years. Therefore, the change would not be that much significant. But for anybody else who is just doing, let's say, the running once upon, let's say, a few months, probably getting into the sport with the healthy way and with the training, with the coach, with the competition, healthy competition, probably it can help to develop the muscles, the speed, the endurance, all of these traits. What about that?
I totally agree with what you say. That of course, if you have some, so for example, if you have higher focus, just to get back to the subject where we were talking about, if you already have a higher concentration, then it can sharpen it and make it even better and strengthen it. Yeah, so the change will be more more significant in that way. So I totally agree with what you say.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's why some of the points may be a little bit tricky, because we are just trying to generalize, and of course there will be always the exceptions, right? Therefore,
yes, right.
They probably wanted us to get into the trap, and some of them succeeded.
Yes, right.
Okay, let's go another one. Chess gives you the opportunity to meet many interesting people. What about that? Maybe interesting in the sense of various people, maybe, right?
Well, let me think. It's true in a sense, I would say, but only if I include everyone from beginner level till high level chess players, because then there are really various people there, so you can meet any kind of people basically. So yes, it is true. I would agree, and yes, based on my experience, I have I have met different people and in chess, and well, I would say it's but it can be in any other hobby. So if we are talking about tennis, running, it can be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's just generally people are different.
yeah, I agree. And maybe to put it a little bit into different perspective, that playing chess over the board or playing in the tournaments may help to let's say meet more people, because this way we are just, for example, traveling. Sometimes other players get into our local chess club, and there will be some like the exchange, right? Exchange of the people, the places, the teams, and so on, and therefore then it would be easier to meet various people. But this was the question that we are going into the last point at this segment, that chess is the game for everyone. There are no barriers or no limitations. And what about that? Do you agree on that? That chess is one of the most democratic game, especially at the sense that it doesn't require a lot of, let's say, expenses to start playing. And for example, that everybody can play. I mean, no matter the gender, no matter the social status, no matter the financial status, no matter the ethnicity, all of the features. What about that? Do you agree on that?
Well, it depends. I need some clarification because just playing chess, of course.
I mean, playing chess in a global sense. I do not mean competitive, but overall. If you compare to
Yes.
the other domains, to the other activities, the chess probably is one of the most democratic games, because, for example, buying a chessboard and the pieces, and if you are just playing without the clocks, because at the park, for example, it is possible, probably it's pretty much very easy. And in the meantime, we can play chess, for example, in a specific way. I mean, specific way, not the different type of chess like Fischer random chess or the classical one, but rather, I mean, the sense in the kind of playing chess, for example, that no other domain can have the same qualities. For example, the player that is 7 years old are competing against 17 or 70, right? And no other sports may have such a gigantic differences, and that's why chess may be some like the unification tool. What about that?
Yes, true, I agree, and I cannot really add anything to it because yes, in that case, that's true. Now I remember the story actually.
Go on, please.
I used to play in a park here in Kecskemét, and but that's where I competed first, because there were some tournaments in that park as well, and I went there quite often with my mom accompanying me, and well, I remember that I was playing against mostly elderly men, 60, 70, or even older, and there was one game where I was playing against an older person, and there were like 2-3 people sitting next to that person, and they were trying to find out what to respond to my moves. And someone just passed by and they said, "Come on, poor little girl is alone, and you have the old man, not the poor little girl, but she beats all of us."
Yeah.
So yes, but of course it can be the other way around as well, that older people can easily beat younger people as well. So yes, it's quite funny.
Yeah, I will agree. Thank you very much for sharing this great story, because sometimes we may not know that some such young girls can beat the older players, and therefore we need to remind that it is not just the age but the skills that matters, and that's why I fully agree. And now we are getting into the next part. The first one was related to what is chess, the explanation. The next one, it was the stuff related to why playing chess is beneficial and what it gives us. Another one is related to the research, the chess science and chess psychology in the moment we'll be talking about, but in general sense, why research or why chess studies or chess, let's say, papers, all of this domain, chess and science connected, why it is that much important to to have it and to spread it, right? Because in a moment we'll be spreading a little bit about this domain. Why it is that much important that the science started getting interest at chess as well?
Because I think science can help competitive players even better. So, for example, it can explore other factors that might be relevant to chess. And well, it can also make chess more popular because well, this is kind of advertisement as well. This is just one side to it, because you know, if there is an article about chess helping to improve this or that or this, that can be an advertisement, and it can help to bring more people in, and therefore we can meet more various people, you know. That's one thing. And while on the other hand, so for example, there might be factors, they say they realize that this X factor helps to improve this epsilon skill, let's say, and therefore we can improve even more, and that is totally helpful for competitive players, or even just mentally, because well, here we are thinking, and we are using our mind, right? But it's not a plain paper or whatever it is. So it's not only the thinking, it's not only the chessboard. It's also that you bring your emotions to the game, and your mental state and your thoughts only, that can be related or not related to chess at all. Thinking about lunch or work or some sort of stress, and by having this experience and well, researchers can have even more to explore ways to improve it, improve in this, and let us get calmer maybe, or exclude this for the period of the game. And I think it can be really useful for competitive chess.
Yes, I fully agree. And in a moment, we'll be talking a little bit more about chess and science and all of the research that are pretty much important. But before that, I'll make a little bit of introduction, and after that, I'll try to give you more space to express the stuff related to the important figures in chess and science. But before that, I'll just make a little bit of introduction. Chess has been the topic of much scientific research. It has been investigated by a number of academic disciplines, including sociology, ethnology, philosophy, mathematics, and neuroscience. By far, it is in computer science, including artificial intelligence and psychology, that chess has been studied to the greatest effect. In artificial intelligence, chess has been a standard task for the development of machine learning and search algorithms. In psychology, it has been the topic of seminal research into perception, memory, learning, thinking, and decision-making. It has sometimes been called the Drosophila of cognitive psychology, by analogy to the role of the fruit fly in genetics. And now, after this short introduction into the topic, we'll be talking about psychology, and especially the figures that are pretty much important in our domain, and I would like to ask you about some of them. First, let's say a little bit about Alfred Binet, French psychologist. If you can tell us about him a little bit, how he got into chess, or how chess discovered him.
I think it will be better if you introduce him a little bit better.
Okay, no problem. French psychologist Alfred Binet was the creator of the first successful test of intelligence. And chess has excited the imagination of psychologists, and Binet studied blindfold chess, variant of chess where players do not see the board. In 1925, a group of Russian psychologists took advantage of the Moscow tournament, which brought together the best players of the time to administer a battery of psychometric tests measuring abilities such as memory, intelligence, and even motivation with the so-called Rorschach tests. They found that there was hardly any difference between chess masters and a control group matched for intelligence, except for tests using chess material and tests measuring the ability to distribute attention and discover logical principles. They also provided a list of physical and mental qualities required by chess, which were instrumental in convincing the Soviet government that chess should be encouraged as an activity leading to the development of self-discipline and the improvement of intellectual competences. And now if you can comment a little bit about that, and I'll just provide in a moment next figure. What about that?
I mean, what can I say? Could you clarify the question exactly?
I would rather try to ask you about the influence of let's say French psychologist Alfred Binet, and refer a little bit about the test of intelligence, because many times players are asking, thinker teacher, maybe you are asking as well, why, maybe not why, do I need to be an intelligent person to play chess? Or sometimes, do I need to have a high IQ to get better at chess? Or maybe do I need to have something like a specific number, for example 140 IQ to become international master? And they are just getting into the intelligence and chess, and that's why I would like you to a little bit comment on that, and this way we can go to the next part as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, so it is actually not needed to be intelligent to become a better chess player, because it definitely helps, and it gives you advantage compared to other players. Well, to compared to players who might not score well on IQ tests. But it is not really needed, because all you need to do is to but there is a lot of pattern recognition, so you have to remember these patterns, these openings, these end games, and you can get to a certain level just by studying this. You don't have to be intelligent. If you are intelligent, of course, it will be easier to get to higher levels, because then it will take less time to put two things together and understand two concepts and connect them, and therefore it will be a faster development, improvement. But it is not really needed. So chess is really for everyone in this matter.
Yeah, I fully agree. And just brief explanation about the intelligence, because sometimes the intelligence is pretty much, not sometimes, intelligence in general is a very broad topic, and therefore we are discussing the global intelligence or general intelligence. We are not getting into the emotional, intellectual, all of the other types, because we are not getting into that deep, because it is going need to it would need to be another stream just for the intelligence and chess. It would be some like 2 or 3 hours up to this point. And in the meantime, as you just mentioned, that intelligence may be a little bit tricky. Why is that? For example, in a general test of intelligence, there are some tests that may be not related to chess in any sense. For example, I'll just reveal one of that, even if some of people may say, oh, it's a secret, and after that I will just make a 150, let's say, points into IQ. Not that easy. For example, one of the tests of the intelligence, I mean the standard one, done by the specialists like psychologists, because they can have the access to the tools to measure the intelligence and make the diagnose and the final conclusions, is the idea about knowing the words. Knowing the words or knowing the meaning of the words. For example, what does it mean to, let's say, have to be lucky, right? Or maybe what is the capital of Poland? And there will be some like factual stuff, or maybe some stuff that that shows that if you understand the meaning of the words, the meaning of the sentences, the meaning of the jokes, and so on. And take notice that some of the players that if they are just focused only on chess may not have this knowledge because they are not interested in other domains, even if it's simple, but they are completely not interested. And then if you are just measuring the level of intelligence, the IQ number, it will drop, right? Because this time they will not get the scores into the specific questions and the scores will drop. But it doesn't mean that they do not know the relationship between the pieces. They do not know how to draw the conclusions. And that's why every time when I am asked about the intelligence, I say that yes, intelligence is very important, but not the global one, but the specific elements. I would even say specific modules. For example, the module related to reasoning, the module relating to drawing conclusions, the module relating to perception, to recognition the pattern. All of this stuff sounds like a scientific one, not something like the, let's say, fluent one. And that's why it's a little bit tricky, and we need to take notice that intelligence is related, but there was not the very deep study that shown how much it is related, even though there was some study that shown that there is some correlation that more intelligent the player, the higher level he can get. But it's not like something like a natural, because you need to work, right? If, for example, if I will just give one counter example. For example, we have the player who is 140 IQ. 140 IQ is something like a talented, right? It's something like close to Mensa. Mensa is just 2% the most, the highest scores at the test intelligence. And for example, he's 140, but he's very stubborn. He does not listen to anybody. He's not watching the videos, he's not learning the books, and he's not having the coach. And all of the time he's arguing with others, even if he's not right objectively, right? The other factor may be the health. For example, if he suffers of depression, if he has the migraines, if he has any other stuff that harms his performance and ability to shine, he will never get into the master level, even though normally 140 IQ is something like pretty much, let's say, I would say in a quotation mark, confirmation that he can get that far, because probably he may have the necessary skills and necessary elements that are responsible for the chess success in a global sense, that they can help him. What about that? Do you agree on that?
I agree on that. Although I would like to add some correction to the IQ test, because as far as I know, the IQ tests are not measuring your factual knowledge, because as you said,
I mean one of the parts. I do not mean it's full. I mean one of the parts, because there are, let's say, 10 or 12 parts depending what kind of test. But I mean one of the parts, and I just show it some like counter example that some of this part is completely not relevant to chess, and that's why no matter it is high or low score, it is not related to chess success. That's what I mean.
Okay. Just because from what I know, knowing facts and well, IQ is more about connecting the dots. How well and how fast you can connect the dots in certain situations. So I think I once took the Mensa test as well, and I think it was only about finding these were little games, I believe, where you had to find the connection, what belonged to what, and so on, and that's and I don't remember the fact part where you had to remember the facts. That's why I was bringing this up. And so the question again, sorry.
The question was rather just the comments about the chess and intelligence, that some of the parts are needed, but it's not full, not full set of elements. Because, for example, let's say in a super simple stuff, if there is 10 elements, that is the general IQ test, and 3 elements are completely not related to chess, no matter if you're having high or low score, it doesn't matter at all. But if there are, let's say, 4 elements that are super important, the ones that you just mentioned, recognizing, drawing conclusions, logical reasoning, and so on, something like a hard one, If you do not have a pretty high on that, or if you cannot manage this high in a, let's say, short span, for example, 5 up to 10 years, probably you will never become FIDE master, grandmaster, or international master, right? Because if you are super, super low, no matter how much work you will do, if you, for example, have very weak memory, right? We are talking about the memory, long-term one. If you do not remember what you played, if you cannot draw the conclusions, if you are doing all of the time the same mistakes, and if you cannot overcome it, probably you will never become a title player, especially if you cannot manage the stress, especially if you do not travel to the tournaments, because there is the investment, right? Or unless we are just talking about the online competition, because it's not that much investment, because everybody can play from his own house. But if we are just having the investment related to travel costs, relating to the accommodation, related to the fee, related to the other any other expenses like having the coach, buying the books, the computers, and so on, we cannot make it, right? And that's why sometimes if somebody asks me, can I get into the FIDE master level? I ask him about the potential. Of course, probably he may not know how much potential he has, but many times if the player is pretty quickly absorbing the knowledge and processing the knowledge in a chess sense, there is the potential that can help him to become a master. And the opposite is true as well. If the player is listening for the lecture is, for example, at the level of 1000, super simple, and he's having hard time to understand what's going on, even though he's playing chess for, let's say, 3 to 5 years, and there is the official, let's say, lecture, let's say on Twitch or YouTube, and he's pretty much not able to comprehend the data, probably it is going to be very, very difficult to become a FIDE master level, right? Because he's not having the capacity to, let's say, overcome the obstacles that is going to get into the way. For example, if you are going from, let's say, 1400 and the 2300 is the ELO, of course, ELO, right, over the board level, that you need to grind 900 points, probably it is not going to be possible, because, let's say, his maximum let's say capacity would be grinding, let's say, 500 points in the span of 40 years, right? And there are sometimes the situations that I say, you can enjoy chess forever, no matter your level. But getting into the best players in the planet at this very challenging domain, probably maybe not that much, let's say, reasonable choice. What about that?
Yes, yes, I totally agree. Many people don't even realize what they need to improve in, what sacrifices they have to make to get into to the top levels, or even reach a grandmaster level. And yeah, it's interesting to see. For example, one time I had someone who came to me online and messaged me that I think he was 18 years old or so, totally beginner. It was after the Queen's Gambit, I think. And he told me that he would like to become a grandmaster, and if I could have him in that, and but I respectfully refused, because it is really hard. I told him that okay, I prefer not to ruin anyone's dreams or possibilities. I just present what they need to have in order to get there, because I see sometimes others who say, no, you cannot be a grandmaster or you cannot be this or you cannot be that. Yes, that might be true, but I prefer not to judge a person's skills or
potential,
capability,
maybe, right?
or potential this way. Instead, I just presented him with facts that okay, no worries, but this is what you need to get there, and I did not receive an answer. So that shows a lot. That probably it caught him really unattended. He did not or she did not know what it takes to be a grandmaster. It's not just 2-3 years work.
I fully agree, and probably there is one important point to let's say show, or maybe to express, that sometimes players are pretty much completely unaware how difficult it is just to become, let's say, an average FIDE master, right? I mean, the open title, because they are not able to imagine how much effort needs to be done, not just into the training, not just into playing game online, but traveling, the cost of accommodation, the cost of traveling, the cost of the coach, the cost of the programs, the cost of the computer, the cost of living, because we need to live anyway, right? And in the meantime, managing a lot of stress, right? A lot of stress. Because if you are just, for example, having a great game, you are just winning for 5 hours, but on the last minute, on the 6th-hour game, you just make a blunder due to complete fatigue, you just simply collapse. It is something like very difficult to overcome it to the next day game. You'll be very much upset, and then you will be playing, for the example, for the 40 to 50% of your overall strength, and playing against very much challenging opponents. Playing 50-60% of your, let's say, overall strength will probably make you, let's say, lose again. Losing again will make this, let's say, state something like upsetting, even into, let's say, a little bit of depression, right? And after that, if the player, for example, quit and he's not able to compete due to the stress, due to the challenge, due to the problems with, let's say, memory, with sleep, with all of the other one, probably it's not going to happen. Because many times, if you are talking about the official titles, the titles that are awarded by playing over the board and over the board classical chess, if the player is, for example, rated, let's say, 2500 at Blitz, at, let's say, Lichess, then it's not comparable that he will become, for example, a, let's say, FIDE master just because he has 25 on Blitz. Because classical games are, let's say, 50 times more challenging. You cannot make something like the flagging, right? Because in classical, if you are just having plus 40 seconds, flagging is something like 1 out of 1000 game, right? These days is pretty much different than, let's say, 40 or 50 years ago. And therefore, knowing what is the potential and how can we, let's say, use our, let's say, strong sides to get the success at chess, is pretty much important, not to be too much, let's say, unrealistic. I do not mean optimistic, but unrealistic. And I stand on the position, it's better to lower down the expectation to the, let's say, a little bit lower than expected, than to pump up the balloon and then it sounds like breaks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, people don't even realize it. Really, it's not. Well, it's of course not a cheap hobby to say the least. It's a very expensive one because, as you said, you have to travel a lot. You have to have a coach, and if you travel, I don't know personally, but if you travel to another sport event, that will end in 2-3 days. But if you travel to a chess event, a more professional one, then it will last 9 to 11 days or even more. So there you have to buy food, you have to buy have the hotel, you have to pay your coach to be there.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes it happened also with me as well, and well, it's really not a cheap hobby. And well, of course, then there is the emotional factors, which you said, handling the loss or the won games. That's another factor, because you also have to get back to earth after a very nice win.
Yeah.
And you also have to manage that. So you have to be professional also psychologically, or even time management, which I struggle with personally, because it's a different thing knowing a lot about chess. Someone's knowledge might be higher if we want to rate that, but if these factors are not there, then that's why they struggle with rating. For example, they are stuck on a certain rating because they cannot get higher. So yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, and practical application is pretty much very much different than the theoretical dissertation, because this way the emotion gets in, the distractions gets in, the expectations and all of the factors we were talking about. It's not something like reading the book or analyzing the games, let's say moving back and forth, because you cannot make the analysis during the game, right? You need to visualize all of the stuff, and if you do not have the good visualization skills, if you do not have the good analysis, and if you cannot calculate good enough, probably you can stack up to, let's say, 1600 level forever. Because I have played when I was a little bit younger against players from my local town that they have been playing chess for 40, sometimes even up to 50 years, and they play competitively at some point as well, and they couldn't break the level of first category. First category is equivalent of about 2200 liches. And in my city there was just one candidate master, and there was no more than that. He was the strongest player, let's say, the last 50 or 60 years. Therefore, it's a way more challenging than many people can imagine, and especially those who played over the board, for example, at least 5 years competitively, they can share the experience how difficult sometimes it is to play the next game after you lose for the 2 or 3 times in a row. Or maybe it is the last game that you fight for the norm, you're super close, and you need to have a draw. You need to draw the game. And your opponent is just playing, let's say, the game that wants to kill you on the board, and you cannot have the chance to draw the game unless you get into the complications. But if you are just afraid of complications, due to the style, due to the lack of stamina, lack of energy and so on, you are just avoiding the complication, even if you sacrifice incorrectly, and you will not get into the lines, some like getting into a little bit of danger, and then just to crush him, you'll be crushed. And after that you say, oh my goodness, I was working for 2 years to get into this norm, and again I need to go into the same style, the same spot, and in the meantime my rating, my ELO rating dropped for, let's say, for example, 20 to 30 points, and then I need to grind it again and again. And many times the players simply quit. Do not quit chess because they play chess, but quit chasing the unrealistic goals, and that's the point. Do you agree on that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go into the next part, because we just introduced the first of our, let's say, figures, French psychologist Alfred Binet. Now, there is another one very much important in chess and psychology. It is Dutch psychologist and chess master Adrian de Groot. Adrian de Groot that made the first experimental study on chess psychology, which he carried out for this FIDE research. It was in 1938. He was earning money as a journalist by covering the Avro tournament in Amsterdam, which brought together world's best 8 players. He managed to convince 5 of the participants to take part in his experiments, including world champions Alexander Alekhine and Max Uwe. Amusingly, some of the data were collected after the tournament on the steamer carrying many European masters to Buenos Aires, where the 1939 Olympiads were held. As the trip was rather long, players were grateful to participate in these experiments and therefore to break the monotony on the voyage. And a little bit more about de Groot, and in a moment I'll give you the opportunity to comment. De Groot studied not only chess players' ability to find good moves, but also their ability to rapidly understand the gist of the position after seeing it just for a few seconds, as well as their ability to memorize these positions rapidly and accurately. Many of the ideas presented in the book by de Groot's thesis was pretty much relevant into the next studies. What about de Groot? How could you comment on that, especially at the stuff we're talking about the memory, rapid recognition and processing the data, because this is one of the key factors, at least from my standpoint, to get into pretty high level. How could you comment that?
Well, the first time when I read this article, it made me remember. I'm not sure if it was the same study, but no, it wasn't, of course. There's another study where they put up a position on a board and they showed it for a second to chess players, and well, whenever the position made sense for a chess player, they could remember better. But if they just put up a position, a totally nonsense position,
So-called random one. Mm-hmm.
a random one,
Yeah.
yes, then they did not score better than an average person, I think, and this is what I remembered, and yeah, it is really interesting that it is also. It also includes memory, maybe, if that makes sense, because then you have to, as a chess player, of course, to remember all these, and if you remember, oh wait, there was a pin there, for example, in a complicated position, even if you just see it for a few seconds, then you can remember better. If you just know how the pieces move, and you see that, okay, it just makes sense, the position, I saw it somewhere, then maybe you won't be that accurate in these things.
Yes, very good point. Thank you very much for the comments. And this is one of the parts that is super relevant, right? The stuff that we were talking previously. That's why I wanted to make a little bit more about the tests, about the components of the test, because this one, especially the factual stuff, is pretty much not related, but the one, long-term memory, how quickly you can memorize and how accurately you recognize, the recognition of the position, and the ability to process the data efficiently. For example, many times when I have been working with the students that were pretty bright, some people say talented, they were just answering the questions that I wanted to ask in 10 or 15 minutes from the moment. And it is all of the time the same. I just present some of the ideas, I just ask them about the description, and they get into the such a deep level of the, let's say, reasoning, that they ask the questions that I want to ask them after 10 minutes of processing the data. And it is one of the simple, let's say, fact, at least from me, some like the signal, that such a player, if he would be persevered, if he would be dedicated to chess and working pretty much, let's say, in a responsible and solid way, he or she may get into the, let's say, title level player. Because these are the traits that are super important and super related to chess progress and chess mastery. Do you have such of this, let's say, in your perspective? I mean, if you recognize that yourself, that you, for example, can have the ability to remember more names, more, let's say, capitals, maybe more data. Did you, let's say, recognize something in yourself? I mean, the ones that we're talking about.
I mean, yes. Yes.
Can you give some of the examples, because it would be very important, because I need to remind our viewers that our friend and our great psychologist Fruzsina is not just player, not just a chess player, but she's psychologist and she's woman FIDE master. Therefore, she needed to play very, very difficult opponents to obtain the title, and therefore you must have the experience. And now I just want you to share this, because it's something like super rare, because the experience playing the over the board games and challenging players and playing many times, many games, many tournaments, and many hours of analysis is practically not shared by many, let's say, streamers, educators, call it whatever you wish. That's why I encourage you to do so.
Okay, so meaning chess, this what you talked about.
Yes, I mean chess, but I mean in the sense, in a little bit broader. Maybe I'll just give you one point to make it a little bit easier. For example, if you have the friends, and friend says, Fruzsina, you are having a great skill because you always can remember the details. You always can remember the numbers. You always can remember the facts. You already can recognize the stuff that we are having trouble, right? And if they're just repeating all over again, and they are not just tricking you, right? Because some of the friends make a little bit of trick, but there is the information, or I would say confirmation, from various people, then it means that something is pretty much inside your brain that helps you to make it better, more efficient, right? Because we'll be talking in a moment after the consequences. And I am interested if you just have something like a feedback about these qualities. The memory, processing the data efficiently, recognizing the, let's say, relationship, and in the meantime, having some like the skills to see the most important elements as the first one. It doesn't matter in chess, but in general as well.
Let me think.
No problem. Take your time.
Okay. Mm, so, well, hmm. Um, well, now that I give it a second thought,
Mm-hmm.
with memory, and while finding these connections, what helped me the most is playing a lot of games and having experience on these things, because just
Mm-hmm.
knowing them, because once I have experience in something, let's just say, I played a lot of games, then the connections will be made faster, because I, for example, can connect the dots that, okay, I don't do this because this will be the consequence, and that's what I can think of right now, the experience, and playing a lot of games, not only just studying,
Mm-hmm.
but actually, in Hungarian there is this saying, throwing someone in deep water, and
Mm-hmm.
who does not know how to swim,
Mm-hmm.
and well, of course it does not work that way, but it is easier to learn those skills in the action than
Mm-hmm.
just knowing this, and well, that's what helped me, I think, the most, because yeah, just to say something of, many people just study the facts. I get back to this, that's what we talked about even earlier, that some people just study the facts, but
Mm-hmm.
that is not enough to know what you are doing. You might know theoretically, but if you're in the game, then it's different,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. And well, um, doing that thing a lot of times. I mean, playing chess a lot of times, and playing a lot of games. Then that can help you to connect the dots even faster. Because I don't think it's easy to connect the dots if you don't if you don't practice something.
Mm-hmm.
So these
Yeah.
are my insights.
Yeah, it's very important because, as you just mentioned, just the facts, the knowledge that we can read for any books, let's say just related, is not enough. We need to apply it in practice, and in practice we need to see if it works or not. For example, I'll just use super simple example. For example, if you are just having the situation of checkmating with two rooks, right? Checkmating two rooks, and there is so-called the ladder technique, right? That we are just moving back and forth one of the rooks and then the other one. And for example, if you do not tell the student that if the king attacks the rook, he needs to step back with the rook or defend it, right? And the player who just processes the data very quickly, he will just automatically recognize it and either move the rook as far as possible from the king or defend it. And the player who is not that much bright, to say the least, may not recognize it, and he will be blundering all over again, because he will be using this, let's say, idea about checkmating too much mechanically, without reflection,
Yes,
without
right.
critical thinking. And this is probably one of the, let's say, biggest difference of a super simple example, right? The super very important difference,
Yes, right.
that the player who are, let's say, having bigger potential with the sense of logical thinking, critical thinking, and all of the, let's say, conclusions, relationship, and so on, will be having a pretty much faster progress than the player who is just processing the information without the filtering out the stuff that is not that much important, or
Yes,
looking for
right.
the exceptions and seeing how it works in practice, what needs to be done to make it work, right? And this is the reason that some players
Yes, right.
may be a little bit, let's say, stuck at some level, because they may have the problems with understanding the rules, let's say the rules, too much mechanically, right? They do not
Yes,
understand
true.
that this is flexibility that they need to apply, because all of the positions may have the exceptions, but they say something like that. and that's why I'm just quoting that because it's super common. For example, they say double pawns are always bad, right? And let's say that they are on your streams and you are just giving your opponent the opportunity to make a double pawns. And they say, Frushi, you do not know what you're doing, right? And you know that these double pawns at this specific configurations are a way better than the pawns that were some like staying normally, right? And that's why you know the exceptions, you know the reason for that. And if they do not know that, they may say, oh, Frushi, you do not know what to do. But you know, because you have just studied that, you just make the analysis. Maybe your coach showed you some of the ideas when it is correct, when it is not correct, and you applied it in practice many times. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I totally agree. Yes, indeed, you can take something too seriously, and yeah, people can fail at understanding what is important in that certain situation. By the way, let me stop for a second because I got a raid from Kathy. Hey, Kathy, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome. I hope you had a very nice stream. And well, right now we are having a podcast like stream with Tom, and please feel free to check him out too and follow him because he definitely deserves it. And we are talking about chess and psychology and these kind of researches and well, basically a scientific approach to chess.
Can we continue?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, excellent. And now the third person with the chess word, if we can say that that is pretty much important to know, or at least know his name. The first one was French psychologist Alfred Binet. The second one was Adrien de Gros, and the third one is something like the duo, because these are two guys. The first one is Herbert Simon. The second one is William Chase. And they done in 1973 at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. They've developed a powerful theory called chunking. It is some kind of chunks that we'll be talking in a moment. This is the theory called chunking to explain the group's data. Combining experimental methods with ideas from artificial intelligence and computational modeling, Simon and Chase performed a series of experiments that inspired much of the research carried out in the following decades. And now a little bit of, let's say, summary about this topic, and in a moment we'll go into the chunks about the patterns, and we'll be talking about that. Nowadays, chess psychology is an active domain of research and is arguably still the main domain in expertise research. Many different aspects of chess are studied, from cognition to personality to intelligence. Several reasons explain this popularity, including chess has its own rating system, so-called IL rating, which offers a precise and up-to-date measure of skill. It has an ideal balance between simplicity and complexity. It allows many experimental manipulations, and it has strong external validity. In fact, the key discoveries made in chess psychology generalize to most domains of expertise, and indeed to psychology in general, as we shall see in a moment. And therefore, researchers often study chess not for its their sake, but for understanding expertise in general. And in a moment after that, we'll get into the deliberate practice. Eric Anderson, 10,000 hours myth, not the rule. We'll be talking in a moment. But now I would like you to, let's say, expand the stuff related to Simon and Chase, so-called chunking theory. Let's talk about patterns, let's talk about chunks, what is this and how it works.
I again think it's better if you expand it.
Okay, no problem. I'll introduce you to it. No problem. Feel free to ask me if you do not feel comfortable. It's perfectly fine. Chunking theory is that theory that Simon and Chase introduced to understand the chess skills from another perspective. They just simply stated that there are some kind of particles in our mind that if we collect them a lot of them, our mind will be working more efficiently. I mean, especially in the chess sense. But there was a little bit of lack of, let's say, efficiency, and therefore they started to let's say, make research based on the merging the elements into so-called bigger parts. And these bigger parts were called chunks. Some like the parts, let's say, of few data that are merged together that has some kind of meaning. Therefore, the one that you just mentioned, the depositions with meaning, has the higher priority with a longer retention and faster processing by the players. And this is one of the stuff. And in the meantime, the stuff related to chunking theory is based on the, let's say, merging the elements into the bigger parts, and then these parts make more sense. If we just connect the parts into bigger parts, it is something like the understanding. And the smaller part with the chunking theory, or maybe a little bit different part, maybe not smaller, is one of the part that is pretty much very much, let's say, repeated. It's so-called pattern. And let's talk a little bit about pattern recognition, because maybe this would be a little bit easier, and after that I'll just continue a little bit as well. Why pattern recognition is that much important for any competitive player? How it works, and if you use it, and if you use it, how powerful it is.
Well, pattern recognition is, of course, there are a lot of patterns what you can practice through, for example, puzzles. So these are, just to say a few examples, for example, pins, forks, or even basic checkmate ideas. And well, if you practice these, of course you can notice these without knowing the pattern on the board, but it will be much harder to see what's happening, because if you had this pattern recognition practice or pattern practice basically, then it will be much easier. Let's say it will take a few seconds to notice, or not even a few seconds to notice, hey, I know what's going on there, because I have seen this before. I have seen this pattern before. While, for example, a beginner player might see it that, oh no, wait, okay, I think I'm losing a piece here, and it may take a few minutes to, or even more to find it, or maybe never to find that. So that's why it's really important, and I cannot imagine someone competing without knowing these patterns. Because it will take a lot of time to see these, and if you don't see these, there is also time management in chess, and you cannot become a competitive player if it takes 10 minutes or 30 minutes to understand one position, only, not the whole game, but one position that happened in that game. You will just simply flag. You have to know this, and that's why it's really important.
Yes, very good introduction. Thank you very much. Sorry, explanation. Thank you very much. And I will just add a little bit, because probably it may give the bigger picture to imagine a little bit easier, that patterns are that much important because with patterns we do not use energy. We do not use calculation. We do not use computational power, right? The one that we'll be talking in a moment, that, for example, stronger players can use so-called tricks, some like efficient processing data, and they based a lot of the patterns. Because once I asked one of our chess streamer, Anna Maria Kazarian, right? I asked her about blitzes, and I was very curious if she replies and what she replies. I asked her what is the percentage that he uses the pattern to play the game that much efficiently, and guess what she answered. Because
I don't know.
I'm talking. Maybe I'll just explain a little bit precise. Because I was seeing I was seeing her playing blitzes 3+0, no time increment, just 3+0, and she was playing pretty much comfortably, very fluent on a higher level, because she's the title player. And in the meantime, I was that much curious how much she uses the pattern recognition, and I know that she's very friendly, therefore I asked the question, and I was expecting the answer that she will just provide it. And she provided how much pattern recognition from her perspective she uses when she plays 3+0. I do not mean bullet, I do not mean classical, 3+0. How much of the positions she recognized immediately due to patterns, not due to calculation. What is the percentage? Try to guess.
Well, I would confidently say it's above 80% for sure, or even more.
Way
Uh,
more, way
way
more,
more.
way more. I was
So
pretty much surprised, of course, not shocked because I was expecting that, but I wanted to have reliable source, right? Because I'm not a master for I cannot state, even if I know that at my point it sounds like pretty close, but I wanted to know from the reliable source. And she mentioned it is some like 97, 98%. 97, 98, and it explains everything. Why? Because titled players in the let's say games against, let's say, players who are below 2000, right? Let's say 2000 in a lichess system, they play very well. I mean, title players play very well, very quickly. They can see everything in the general sense, and except of the blunders due to the lack of concentration, so like looking at the chat or thinking about a different stand, switching the window, they win 95% games. And how it is possible? They cannot calculate that quickly because not everybody can make such a huge computational stuff, especially if some of the title players play blitzes for 5 hours. If they have a huge energetical overload, they couldn't do it more than 1 hour. They would simply collapse, right? Due to the, let's say, energetic, let's say, blackout. And that's why if Masters uses 95 or more percent to pattern recognition, they can play very much fluent on the high level and make very quick decisions. In the meantime, if they can calculate and visualize pretty much on a high level, they can do it like masters in a sense of ideals, right?
yes, right.
And that's why I was some like sure about the patterns, that without patterns you cannot do anything. And the second part about the patterns is that we are just having patterns and rules. Two powerful weapon that all of the title players all of title players uses, even if they do not say that explicitly. Patterns, because we can look at the position and immediately know the solution. Sometimes we make a little bit of, let's say, twist, a little bit of changes if there is the need for that. And the second one are the rules, right? For example, the rules in the opening, the rules in the middle game, and the rule in the end game. And these two powerful weapons gives us the opportunity to play on a very high level. Otherwise, we couldn't break 1500 level, or maybe 1500 to be the same as nowadays 2600. Because you cannot all of the time evaluate the position, and you calculate the series of variations like a machine. And that's why masters use so-called tricks. What
Yes,
about that? Would you like to comment on that? Do you agree on that or not?
I agree on that exactly, and it's what comes to my mind about this subject is there is this saying that you cannot improve by playing blitz or bullets, for example. I mean, you can improve your pattern recognition in these and value your intuition in these games, but those are not necessarily needed that much in, for example, in a more serious chess.
So-called classical games, right?
Yeah, so-called classical games, and yes. So, for example, I think you can get to a pretty good blitz or bullet level if you just do these easy puzzles. You don't have to do the hard ones to calculate longer, but just these easier ones, and go through a book that teaches you all these motives, or most of the motives.
Yes, I fully agree, and it's very important because this way a lot of let's say beginners that they try to think, because maybe I'll just tell you what was my misconception about chess, and I was completely let's say convinced that this is how it works, because when I started chess I didn't have any coach, I didn't have any literature, I didn't have the club, I was completely by myself, and I was something like that. Okay, now I know how master works, I mean how master outplays. If you are 1000, you need to look for the two moves depth, right? 2 moves. If you are 1200, you need to freeze for the 3 moves. If you are 1400, 4, and so on. And master 2200 always sees 15 moves deep. That's why he's the master. Now it's practically ridiculous, right? Finger teacher, are you
Yes.
crazy? Are you crazy? Nobody of the masters see all of the time each position 15 moves tips,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But
yes.
I was convinced about it because nobody could tell me, no, Finger, it doesn't work like that. They have the patterns, they have the rules, and they see what are the changes, and if they repeat it many times, they can play it automatically. They slow down. Either, if there is a big blunder, they cannot believe it, because if they are playing against, let's say, decent players or like that, what? Are you giving me the queen? What is the trap? They seek for the refutation, or if they need to slow down because of the difficulty of the position. Not the blunder by the opponent, but the objective difficulty, because they do not have the knowledge about the patterns, because the position is close to random that you referred before. And in the meantime, there is the situation that they have problems, for example, at time trouble, right? They need to make
Yes.
decision quickly. The position objective is very, very difficult. They do not have the access to the specific position in their pattern recognition system, and they cannot use the rule because probably there is the exception, right? And then you sound like that.
Yes.
Why didn't you play this simple move? Stockfish said it was +4. Why didn't you play that? It is so easy. Just play the knight from C3 to A1. Pretty easy. You just break the rule. You're just winning +4, bro. Are you FIDE master? No way. And that's why sometimes players, if they are just using the engine, oh, I knew everything, right? It's easy. I
Yes,
can
of
play any
course.
position. But what happens when you turn off the engine? Maybe let's stay away. Let's give Frushi the console. Let her fly, right?
Yes, right. I totally agree. Yes.
Okay. I guess now we are just having the next model, let's say, done. And now let's go into another one, because we are slowly getting into the stuff that we are talking about. Now let's go into the so-called chess myths. Chess myths, because there are a lot of them. At least the most common one we'd like to address, and they will be pretty interesting, because we all just show you and try to explain the myths, how they work and why they are that much common, why they are that much widespread, and what is the reason that these myths are not true but the myths. And the first one I would like to start with would be the myth about anybody can be chess master given the right type of amount and practice. And this is related to the 10 years or 10,000 hours of practice that we'll be talking about. But let's start with the statement. For example, if you are just at one of the streamers that is not a title one, let's say 1600, and there is the discussion, you are just lurking and you are just something like that, oh, I know Finger Teacher is just probably going into them in a moment, but I'll be the first. And they are just talking like that. Guys, it's easy. Anybody can be a master. It is just the right type of amount and practice, and nobody, if you have the predispositions, if you are talented, if you are, let's say, having let's say, stuff that we are talking about a little bit about, let's say, intelligence, but anybody can be a master. How could you refute that, and why it is a false statement? At least I hope so.
In the meantime, Dr. Tripp says that he thinks Lasker said this the first time, and I don't know about that, but yeah.
Would you like me to comment briefly about Lasker's statement?
Yes, let's say.
Because
Yes.
maybe it will open up a little bit more, because this is the statement that is not
Yeah,
that much
sure.
popular. But in the meantime,
Sure.
I guess it may be great to address it very briefly. Lasker
Yes.
mentioned in our standards, I mean our standards nowadays, that anybody after 200 of hours of efficient learning by the coach, he mentioned the master, can become 20-200 player at leeches. I'm just using some like simple matter,
Yes.
because he referred that the player would be competent enough not to lose the games. I don't want to quote because it will be a little bit, let's say, polluted, but rather that everybody after 200 hours of let's say, coaching by the coach or by the trainer or the competent player, mostly masters, can become, let's say, 2100 player at leeches. In a, let's say, a little bit more practical terms, it is the first category player. First category player is the, let's say, highest category. Up to this category is the candidate master, at least at Europe, right? And
Yes,
please
right.
continue. Please continue.
Yeah, so This is a false statement because, well, I think we briefly discussed this in the beginning that we don't start with the same skills one and with the same possibilities with money also with skills with intelligence and motivation also.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really hard to create, for example, one training program to that works for everyone, because that is one thing. And on the other hand, it depends, uh, as we said, it depends on their psychological factors as well. So, for example, if I have migraine, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say I have, like you
I have
mentioned.
them. I have them.
Oh no, I imagine how bad it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And well, if you, let's say, think for hours in a competitive over the board game, your head might start hurting,
Mm-hmm.
and then you are already at odds, and that is one thing.
Yeah.
And let's just say, okay, it can be any kind of physical pain, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if someone is sick, or but it can also be different skills. So, for example, if someone has some sort of mental illness, that can make it even harder.
Mm-hmm.
That is another factor. um, and it's really hard to find the best resources for everyone's needs,
Mm-hmm.
and find the right methods. Maybe a few methods or a few problems are not even explored yet, and we don't know how to improve this, or what to do with that kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. So there are so many things that we should know, and so many resources should be available, because okay, let's say I have this kind of problem, and okay, this is the right coach for that, but let's say you even find the right coach, but maybe you don't even know who is the right coach who could help you out in this.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say you even find that coach, but then there is also the problem, can you afford that
Yeah.
coach? Because
Financial problems, right?
yeah,
Or financial
financial
challenges.
problems,
Mm-hmm.
yes, right. And then there is on the other hand, there is the I think it was also mentioned in the article that there is a huge difference between players who started before age 12,
Yeah. We'll be talking
and
in a moment about it. Yes. Uh-huh.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes, and yeah, so it also matters when they start playing chess, and of course you can always achieve something, even if you start at, let's say, age 30.
Mm-hmm.
You can, there are things that you can achieve, but your chances will be smaller
Mm-hmm.
to
Will decrease.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
it will decrease,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
by age.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe one important stuff that you mentioned, I will just extend a little bit, because many times there are the adult chess improvers, so-called ADI, right? Old chess improvers are the people who started playing chess after they get adult, right? After they become adult. And for example, if there is the player who started playing chess, he is, for example, 45, and he started playing chess, and he's very slowly progressing. Even if he has the coaching session, he's not motivated. Even if he's motivated, he's not getting that, because the coach needs to repeat the simple, at least from the coach perspective, the simple idea, the simple concept for the fifth time, and after sixth time he say, oh, I got it, right? But after sixth time, and he does not analyze the game, he's not pretty much responsible for their action, probably he will never become FIDE master, never. And I take full responsibility for what I say, because this is the facts. I'm not talking because I am jealous, because I will never become FIDE master. I accepted that, even it was difficult. It took me 10 years to accept. Thinker teacher, you will die without FIDE master title. Yes, that's okay, but I'll be streaming chess, I'll be sharing my knowledge without FIDE master title. Let's see how it happens. So far, it goes very nice. And in the meantime, if the players are not pretty much, let's say, having the opportunity to get into such a high level, they may not do it. For example, many adult chess improvers, I mean the players, let's say, after age 30, they have family, they have friends, they have any other activities like hobbies, running, playing basketball, playing football, any other type of endeavor, and they cannot devote that much time into getting, let's say, into FIDE master title. And from what I heard, because I have been listening for 5 years, the Perpetual Chess podcast, the podcast hosted by Ben Johnson, he just had a lot of the guests, and there were just literal 2 or 3 guests that became title players when they were adult. But there was pretty much big factor. They either played intensely when they were young, or they were close to the level they wanted to achieve. For example, if I would be a national master, getting into FIDE master, probably it would take me 5 years. But now, if I am just, let's say, 1600 ELO player, I will never become FIDE master, let's say, player, because it needs to get into 2300. It's a lot of the, let's say, investment. And recently I was just make a little bit of calculation, and it was pretty much depressing for some of the viewers, and they didn't believe. They say, no, Thinker Teacher, you're overestimating. And I just showed them all of the calculations, showed them how I calculate that, and they were something like that, Thinker Teacher, we had no idea about it. Because I just mentioned that if I would like to become, let's say, candidate master, I mean official candidate master of the FIDE Federation title, I would need to invest 20,000 euros. I mean, it is the minimum, 20,000 euros. And that's why I do not have that much money, but I do not have the desire. Even if somebody would sponsor me, I would say, no, I would rather share the knowledge. I would rather show how it is done. I would rather share my passion. But I do not have the drive to become FIDE master level player. Therefore, it's not for me. And one more important factor, because we'll be talking about it a little bit more in a later stage, being the title player means that one is pretty much very at the end of the Gaussian curve, right? Something like the Gaussian curve. That is the big part is the majority of players, but the end of the curve is just the exceptions of the exceptions. And this is the same. How many of the runners you can let's say run over if you're just getting into the competition, right? If you're not doing this in a professional way, get into the competition. They are just, let's say, having the quarterfinals of the let's say national championship, right? Get into this and see how quickly you can just overrun them. No way, you have no chance. And the same with chess. The only difference, chess is not visible in the sense of, let's say, getting tired and you're just collapsing on the, let's say, race, right? And chess is something like mental, but it's a lot of the effort, a lot of the investment that majority of players are completely unaware. And sometimes if some of the viewers are getting into my chat and they are something like that, I am 1400 Thinker Teacher. What should I do to become 2000 in a month? And I tell them, go to the magician, because I can tell you what is the way to this. Go to the magician. Probably he will help you. What about that?
Well, right. I can only repeat what you said, and well, what I said before. In a month, okay, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is enough time.
Yeah. It's unrealistic goal, right? Unrealistic goal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because what he should or she should study is way more than 1 month's knowledge, and that is one thing. And well, yes, well, yeah.
Maybe the only exception to make it a little bit of fun, only exception would be he can do it even without a week, but probably he will be banned by using the engine, right?
Yes.
Therefore, you can speed up way more when you would like to do it, but probably will be banned during using the engine, illegal assistance. And now let's get into the next point briefly, because we were talking about it a little bit. That if you want to become chess master level, chess master player, you need to have some talent. You need to have some talent. Is it true or is it not true from your standpoint?
I think
Talent as the sense of predispositions, because talent is sometimes defined a little bit not precise. I mean, predispositions that we are talking about: critical thinking, drawing conclusions, recognizing the patterns, seeing the relationship, and so on. The hard one, if I can say that.
yes, yes. I think you can become a master without. I can't say without talent at all, but if you're not so good at that part, you can still become a master. But I think it would take so much more time than it would take for a talented person.
Yeah.
Yes, because of course, like you said, maybe a talented person, you will have to tell something a talented person 1 or 2 times, while a not talented person will understand it after 5th or 10th time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And sometimes it's very difficult, especially for the older chess improvers, because from my, let's say, from my knowledge and about the, let's say, listening to the podcast and reading the articles and so on, it looks like that adult chess improvers, to understand the same concept that the child understands after 1 or 2 repetitions, they need to do the same 7 or 8 times. 7-8 times to understand the same one as the kid who is, let's say, 8 or 10 years old. And that's why if you do not make 7 or 8 times more work than the kid, probably it is not going to be possible, because I just use a little bit harsh, let's say, comparison. You will die before you will reach that. For example, if you're at the age of 40, and if you will be, let's say, needing 40 years to get into the master level, if you get into just 70 and you will die, you will need to work 10 years after your death, right? Pretty harsh, I would say.
Yes, right. Nice Gaming Bro says talent is the starting point, hard work and dedication are the vehicle. Yes, I can agree to that, because of course with bare talent you cannot do anything. Of course it will be faster. If you, so for example, I think, yeah, we are talking about a situation where 2 people put the same amount of time into chess. One will progress faster because they can move forward and information, while the other one is maybe still stuck. Maybe they are still working the same hours, but yes, one will progress much faster.
Yes, I fully agree. Okay, let's go next one. Chess makes you smart. Chess makes me smart. Is it the myth or is it the fact? I would say, how would you, let's say, evaluate this one? Some of this may be a little bit difficult, therefore feel free to interpret by your own standards. Chess makes you smart.
Well, there are so many ways that you can be smart, right? It's not only one kind of smart in my opinion. So it can improve it can improve factors that contribute to this picture that we call smart. But it's mostly related to those skills and factors. I would not say that yes, your IQ will increase for sure by, I don't know, 10% or anything like that. So but we also don't have enough research on this matter, if I am correct. So it's hard to say anything concrete about the matter.
Yeah, but at least we have a little bit, let's say, research about the adult chess improvers, that at least from the, let's say, modern standards, there are not that many adult chess improvers who became masters, unless they played when they were young and they are just pretty close to the level they want to achieve. That's why probably this I can explain a lot. Okay, let's go into another one because there is the interesting one of the myths that I would like to point out as well. Chess helps to fight Alzheimer. Alzheimer is the, let's say, the disease that makes us to forget everything.
Mm-hmm. I haven't done a research in that, and I do not have any experience if it does have or not. So I don't really have an opinion or comment on that. I think it might, but I think there is again, I'm not sure if there are studies out there that prove this statement wrong or right.
Yes, there are some studies that confirm that, but I need to say this pretty much explicitly. What kind of training? Because it's not just playing chess, but what kind of training it needs to be. For example, most of the times, if the training is the intense one, I would say professional one, all of the studies shown, no matter if it is the, let's say, kids, teenagers, or adults, no matter what the age, that there is the significant change. I do not mean huge one, but significant in the sense that it's visible and we can say it's important, right? In the simple manner.
Yes.
And Alzheimer can be, let's say, destroyed, to put it this way, destroyed with any mental activities. It doesn't need to be chess. It can be bridge, it can be any other, let's say, crosswords, any other, let's say, activities that is based on the mental activity. But chess with the professional approach, I mean the responsible one and the challenging, like playing in the tournament, so on, so like with all of the engagement and so on, gives us the opportunity to fight back the Alzheimer. And I'm sometimes joking, even if it is not a joke, but it is the form of the joke, that everybody who is playing chess in a competitive way, I do not mean they need to play master level players, but at least they need to give their best at each game, or most of the games. Whoever plays in a serious way will not live long enough to suffer the Alzheimer. For example, the Alzheimer will start at the age of 110 and we will die at the age of 90. Therefore, you'll not live that long. Due to chess, due to the activity of the brain, due to the mental activity, but over the condition that you need to treat it seriously. You do not play it something like lightly and, for example, once a week or maybe once a month, because it will not be the impact about the, let's say, possibility to fight back the Alzheimer.
Yes, right. Tripp says he knows the epidemiology of Alzheimer's disease, and they say learning new things and playing chess helps to postpone the clinical form.
Yes. And it was at some research. It was in some research, therefore,
yes.
That's correct. I fully agree. And now another question from my chat this time. Nikolaos, our friend from Greece, asked, about psychology, are there any tips not to lose the focus thinking and not to block on the stressful point? We'll be addressing this in a moment because we are just getting, let's say, further and further. And in a moment, we'll be addressing this because now we just finished the part number four about chess myths, and now we are getting into the questions related to psychology and a little bit of training or coaching, because as we just mentioned, our friend Frushi is not just psychologist, not just a player, but a coach as well. Therefore, she will just tell us about some of the stuff I'll just provide in a moment. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I will be just this time it is the same as we just started, a little bit of warm up, even if you probably are warm up at this moment. But this is not some like pretty much extended one, but rather some like a mediocre. Of course, if you want to expand it, it's okay. But we have a little bit more of them. Therefore, let's not expand it too much. The first one is chess a mental game?
Yes.
You can say a little bit more than one word. Not that quick. Quick, but not that much.
Oh no.
Oh no, my queen.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh no, my answer. Yeah. So yes, of course it's a mental game, but because of course it involves a lot of mental skills to play chess. I mean, on a more advanced level. Of course, if you put someone there without knowing how the pieces move, it won't be so mental for them. But once you are more familiar with strategies and so on, of course, it will be more mental and of course it affects your mental skills and I think we can also include the psychological ones because those are also mental in a
Yes,
in a way.
they are related. Okay, thank you very much. Another one. What mental skills does chess develop? What mental skills does chess develop? Of course, we are talking about it a little bit, but if you can summarize it, it would be great.
Yes, well, of course, memory. That is one thing. I think also decision making, which we did not talk about. I think I would also add that taking responsibility for our actions. And well, what did you say? That's was there? Yes, well, of course. Pattern recognition, which is also part of it. Yes, just to say a few.
Yes, probably reasoning, drawing conclusions, right?
Yes, drawing conclusions also. That yes.
Recognizing the patterns, and in the meantime, recognizing the relationship in general.
Yes.
Okay, next one. Therefore, this form is a little bit faster. Does chess indicate intelligence?
No, it does not. It does not. Everyone can play chess. It does not matter if you score high or not on IQ test, or if you are intelligent or not. You can play chess regardless. And also, I would like to address that it definitely helps if you are intelligent, because in a way that is some sort of talent, if you can say it this way. But I think even you can get to grandmaster level without being intelligent at all. So
yes, that's correct. No. And in the meantime, just a little bit for those of you guys who are pretty much curious, you can just type in the Google Levitt and the equation of intelligent and chess, because it was one of the English, if I'm not mistaken, player, and that he devised the equation based on what is your maximum, let's say, level you can reach if you have the specific, let's say, number that you know about your IQ. Of course, after the years, there was the interview with him. If I'm not mistaken, even it was at Perpetual Chess Podcast, and he just revealed that it was kind of joke. It was not something like a super, let's say, scientific one, but rather it was a pretty much estimation, and that's why it's not like that you just input the number of your IQ, and after that you can say, oh, I can become 1400 maximum. No, I just did the wrong number. I can become 2500. That's why it doesn't work this way. Of course, there may be some correlation, and probably there is the correlation, especially with the hard factors that we were talking about with the intelligence, but the hard one and the level that you can achieve. But of course, there are many variables, as you just mentioned. For example, the skills about time management, stress management, about the health, depression, mood disorders, all of the other types of stuff that needs to take into account. Okay, yes. Another one.
Wait, yeah? Now I have something.
Okay.
My chat has a question.
Of course.
Nice Gaming Pro says, sometimes when I play chess, I feel so brain scattered. I can't help but wonder if it has to do something with managing the chaos, finding your way in a dense thicket, concerning the Alzheimer's. What are your thoughts?
Can you summarize a little bit, because I was a little bit lost. Let's say processing this.
Yes. So when he plays chess, he feels brain scattered. That means I think
he means that he's pretty much tired after the game. That's the point.
I think so. Right? Yeah. Are we right? And he says he's wondering if it has to do something with managing the chaos and finding your dense thicket. What does that mean? finding your way in a dance like it.
I'm not sure about the last expression, to be honest. I know what is chaos, how to manage it. I know it, but
yes,
the last one, I'm not sure if I got it.
Yes, could you elaborate it a little bit? Nice gaming room.
Maybe I'll just start a little bit, and after that you will let me know if about the last part.
Okay.
Playing chess, if you are playing chess in a competitive way, needs to be, let's say, the mental effort. With mental effort, there is the tiredness, right? We are getting tired. If you are not getting tired, either we are not engaged, either we are just having the opposition that is pretty easy, either we are not playing long enough. But let's say if you are playing, because I just made this test a lot of the times and it works every time. Even Cyrus Lakwadala, I'll just let you know what Cyrus Lakwadala, our friend for the community, just mentioned once, because he just has great, let's say, ideas. Not everybody can apply that, but probably you may just confirm if you just apply in your training, at least from time to time. If we are playing chess, and if we are playing chess at least 1 hour, because this most often the time, it is the time that we are just having the, let's say, opportunity to see if there is the changes, and if we are engaged into the competition, if we are playing the challenging opponents, and if we are doing our best, after 1 hour, we should feel tired. Of course, there are many variables, like the age, like the mental capacity, like the stress management, all of the factors that influence that. But if we feel tired, it means that we were thinking, that we were working. It's the same if you're running, right? If you're running for 30 minutes, we are just having problems to breathe, right? Because there is a lot of, let's say, problems to breathe due to the, let's say, lack of oxygen and so on. And we are just sweating. We are just having the muscles that are having problems to be that much, let's say, in shape as we just started. It's a natural reaction. But about the chaos, the second part, in a moment you will let me know if the third part is on the chat. The second part about the chaos, there is the stuff that we were talking with our friend Frushi. The first one is to know patterns or pattern recognition. The second one is to know about the evaluation of the position in a general sense, because this way you can know what to look for, what to calculate. And the third one is the ability to understand what you do in the sense of, let's say, basic stuff. For example, captures, threats, checkmates, depending on your level, right? Some like a specialized stuff. Therefore, patterns, rules, and in the meantime, the skills related to the stuff that you're having problems. Because, for example, if you are just wasting a lot of the time in the opening, and you do not know the basic opening, at least the lines and the ideas, after even, let's say, an hour, you can be that much exhausted that if you would be after 4 hours. And that's why probably the metaphor with being scattered or feeling exhausted. That's my estimation.
Okay, we have clarification. You have to decide when to be aggressive, when to be defensive. You have to think in so many different ways, and it's hard to know what's appropriate when. If chess forces you to figure it out, I think that would be helpful with combating Alzheimer's.
Yes. This is the confirmation. And confirmation what I previously mentioned, that because I expected that probably this is the case, that the more patterns you know, the faster you recognize the position. The faster you recognize the position, the less effort you need to make to find good move. I do not mean the best, but at least good move. The more stuff you know about captures, threats, simple one, at least the ones that you use all of the time, the faster you can recognize it, and you can either force it over your opponent or defend against it if your opponent forces over you. And of course, there is the topic of evaluation, the topic of visualization, and the topic of calculation. If you are just very good at this one, you'll be making this more efficient. Instead of calculating 4 lines at the depth of 5, you'll be calculating 2 lines at the depth of 3. After that, you will just pause, make the position evaluation, and you will select one of this, depending on the evaluation or depending on the comfort of play. For example, there are the types of position that we understand better, that we want to play this type of position, not the other one, something like the random one. What about that? Is it good enough, the answer?
Yes, I think for me, yes.
Okay, maybe I'll just read from my chat the question as well. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Mike Pumpkin the Cat has the questions. Have any studies tried to scientifically study the effect on tilt? If I'm not mistaken, the effect of tilt was probably not measured as yet. Of course, there was the effect about, let's say, the stress and so on, but the tilt, do you know any studies, my friend Frushi?
No, I don't think so.
Probably there is a new area to make that research, right?
Yes, right.
And yes, and another one, because I have one more from the chat. Kirkek says, I have serious doubts that a person with a low IQ ever become a GM. Yes, this is the confirmation. Because if the person, maybe I'll put it a little bit of number. I don't like it because it makes a little bit confusion, but I am forced at this point. Okay, let's go, guys, in a simple manner. If you are just having 100 IQ as the standard, it means you are not either good, either bad, it's something like the average. If you're just having 100, if the necessity to become a grandmaster is having 120, and you're just having 100, probably you will never make it. But there is another point. If you're just having the IQ of, let's say, 90, and the necessity to become candidate master is, let's say, 80, if you just take out the stuff that is not important, and for example, you have 80, some like a clear the elements that are reliable to the chess improvement, and 80 is candidate master, you can make it within, let's say, 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years, but you can make it because it's realistic. But if you have 80 as the IQ, and the grandmaster needs to have 120, and from 120 there needs to be 115 of this clear one, the 5-1 is sound like not important, probably will never make it. But you can always enjoy chess, right? What about that? Do you agree on that?
I don't know, because my thoughts are, I'm not sure chess would have reaching a grandmaster level would achieve. I mean, reaching a grandmaster level would need some certain IQ level, because
maybe I'll just make a little bit of precision. I mean IQ, not as the IQ the test one, something like the score, but rather the ability, because the IQ at this sense that I'm thinking is the ability to learn, the ability to draw conclusions, the ability to think logically and critically, the ability to process the data efficiently, the ability to recognize the patterns, and the ability to create the connections, so like the dots. That's what I mean. Of course, it is not the only one, but this is the basic one, because you need to know how to make the time management, stress-related, investment in tournaments, so on. But this is some like a basic one. This is like an engine with the car, not in the games. What about that?
Yes, true. Although I think you can also achieve a lot by not necessarily having these, because they can also be, I think, a little bit chess specific. Also these cognitive skills we mentioned before, responsibility and memory. This can also be chess related, and yes, well, this will improve, and you can connect it with the real world, but not necessarily. I mean, real world, like outside of chess, so how to put it? So what I wanted to say, that you might have the ability in chess, but you don't necessarily connect it with outside
with
of
intelligence.
Chess.
With intelligence, those of mean.
Yes, and you don't necessarily. You are not necessarily good at these things just because you can reach grandmaster level, and you can of course connect it, but it's not necessarily connected. That's another part, actually. What's we could talk about at some point.
Okay, can we continue? Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
next one is the opposite of the previous one because there was a little bit of questions that are a little bit tricky sometimes, easy sometimes, a little bit challenging, but anyway they are various. Are smart people naturally good at chess?
No, not necessarily.
And can you
Um,
elaborate a little bit?
mm-hmm. Yes. So again, being smart, there are so many ways to be smart. You can be emotionally smart. You can be smart chess-wise. Mm, I wouldn't say they are good just by default, and just like that, because again there are so many chess factors as well, theoretical part to it, what you need to learn, and yes, you can be smart, and yes, maybe it will be easier for you to be good, but still you will need to know some principles, you will need to know the patterns. You won't just magically see these patterns faster, or no, for example, the Sicilian, just because you are smart, you will be beaten in 10 moves, if you are not, or even less, if you don't know these, which are more theoretical, and yeah.
In general, you need to practice to become good. It's not just you are smart and you are just the master, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, another question. Does chess reveal your personality? What about that?
Well, actually, it's a really interesting subject because as a psychologist, and well, through my university years, I was really interested in this, and I wanted to do some research, but I later realized I don't like doing researches, so I did not do anything with it. I think it it can it can reflect your personality. I don't say totally, because for example, as a grandmaster, um, you will need to manage attacking positions, but strategical positions as well. So if you attack as a strategical player, it does not mean that you had a bad day and, and you just want to kill your opponent, or you are angry with someone, but more in a way that mm, it's a really hard question, but mm, I don't know. I don't know.
To be honest, this is the question that I cannot answer because I do not know either. But what is important that one stuff that probably everybody knows, I'm not sure how it is connected or not, that sometimes there are the players who are who are playing very sharp positions, but in a real life they are pretty much calm people. Something like without being aggressive, without being,
Yes.
let's say, pretty much cocky and so on. But they are playing that much sharp stuff that we expected, oh my goodness, this guy would be probably very aggressive in the real life. No, he or she just expresses the ideas over the board, but I'm not sure if this is the let's say correlation, right, or strict correlation, that if you are just, for example, aggressive person, you will be playing aggressive chess. If you are a calm person, you will be playing a positional, slow chess, right? Therefore, I'm
Yes,
not
right.
sure if this is the correlation, but at least pretty nice question, isn't it?
Yes. And well, actually, we have a few questions in
Okay,
chat.
go on, of
Just
course.
yes. So there is one. Can people not learn these abilities through hard work? So what we were talking about in the previous subject. So for example, this pattern recognition and connecting the dots, making decisions. What we talked about, can these be learned through hard work?
You mean that I should ask about it? Sorry, I should answer this? That's what you mean?
I just bring it in. I personally think they can be improved. I don't like to think about this as a skill you learn. It's more, I see it more like a skill that you are this good at making decisions, how well you make your decisions. It's not something that you know how to make decisions, and therefore you will always make the right decision, or it's not something that, in my opinion, that, for example, if you have good memory, it does not mean you remember everything, right? Or I could bring up other examples as well, but I think they can be improved.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you just learn and then you have it. If that makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there are the stuff that can be improved pretty much. Some of them may be improved just mediocre, and some of them may not be improved at all. At all. Of course, it's not like that I magically can say that this one can or this can't. But for example, I'll just give one example. If there is the player that has never had the intense training about visualization, all of the time he's just let's say avoided this kind of exercises, especially in the young age when he was the kid. Probably when he would be trying to be good at visualization, and if he naturally doesn't have this skill that he can very quickly develop that, he will be having the problem visualization to the end of his life. And now the question is how much the visualization problem will make his game collapse. For example, the blunders with calculation, the blunders with visualization of the pin, and all of the other, let's say, concepts. And therefore, some of them can be improved, other may be improved mediocre, but some of them may not be improved at all. And that's why the better we can diagnose the potential at the initial stage, the faster is to help to create the realistic plan. And of course, most often the time in the psychology there is the trend that everything can be learned. I do not agree with this because it's a little bit too much idealistic, but unrealistic as well. I agree that many stuff can be learned, many stuff can be improved, but not all of them. Not all of them, because there are the studies, not just the psychological interest, but overall studies that shown that there are some stuff that cannot be changed. Of course, there are not that many, but there are some of them that cannot be changed. And if somebody is interested, it's pretty easy to, let's say, Google some of them. For example, which, let's say, characters, traits or qualities can be changed and how much, which one cannot be changed at all. And probably this can be some like a little bit direction into, let's say, the interesting materials, like, let's say, podcasts, like, let's say, YouTube videos and all of the one. And one more, because it's pretty much important to our sport, especially chess related. It's Andrew Huberman, one of the guy from United States. He's the neurologist, probably neurologist with psychology connection, but I'm not sure. But at least he's neurologist, and he just make a lot of the research. In the meantime, it was the meta-analysis, therefore the many, let's say, researches that was taken into one part and drawing conclusions that after the age of either 25 or 27, not sure about it, but probably 27, we just lose some kind of plasticity, some kind of elasticity of our brain. Therefore, it's a way more difficult. And from my standpoint, because I have been analyzing this for 20 years already, it fits excellently. Because if there are the players who are just playing chess, I mean the practical application, playing chess at the age, let's say, at the age of 10 up to the age of 15, they are just playing 5 years. And then after 20 years they continue playing, they can get a way farther than the player who hasn't played chess at all and started playing at the age of 35. Because the plasticity at the, let's say, teenage years and the, let's say, children years gives the fundamentals that they are, let's say, having the let's say fundamentals on our, let's say, system that they can build upon. But after the age of 27, these fundamentals may not be possible either to build, or they will be some like collapsing from time to time. I'm of course using the analogies, right? Because it's not super precise, but at least from what I heard and I listened is the stuff that after the breaking, crossing the age of 27, then the plasticity of the mind drops. And this is the stuff that the older we are, the less we train the specific skills, the harder is to get into the high level. For example, to me to understand some of the strategical ideas, sometimes I need to devote, for example, 30 to 40 hours. And I know that other players, for example, the players at the age of, let's say, 15 or 16, for example, my students can do the same 5 times faster. 5 times faster, and try to imagine how much frustration do I need to suffer if I can see, oh my goodness, I needed to devote for that 3 months, and you are just getting out after the 4th lesson, right? And we are just meeting once a week for the 1 hour or 2 hours. And after 3 weeks, you are just knowing everything what I needed to learn for the 3 to 4 months. And that's why this may be true, that some of the features can be improved, but others, especially if you are cross the age of 27, may be really difficult. That's my point.
Makes sense. Yes. We have another question.
Okay.
Do you think personality influences opening choices?
I have no idea, because we were talking about the personality. It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Yes.
I would rather hypothesize. It's my hypothesis that the curiosity has the bigger influence over the selection at the openings, and the way of how to put that, the way of functioning. For example, if I am the curious person, maybe I'll tell on my own person. If I am a curious person, I would like to test various openings. And I do not care, even if I do not have the repertoire, that I'll be beaten, because I do not have the drive to become FIDE master. Therefore, I'll be experimenting. But if there is another player who is not interested in experimenting because he knows that he wants to become a FIDE master, in general, he can be interested in the experiments, but he knows that he needs to have the, let's say, the opening repertoire, he'll stick to it. But probably he will be expressing his creativity, his curiosity, and the willingness to test the ideas either in different domain, or maybe he will be using these skills into the solving the puzzles. For example, he will be solving the studies, right? The puzzles that needs to, let's say, make you curious how difficult the idea is, and some kind of breaking the limits related to the, let's say, so common rules. And that's why he may have the stable repertoire, but he may express his curiosity and let's say, willingness to test at a different domain, and he will be sticking into the repertoire because he is listening and obeying the coach's advice that he needs to do this way, because otherwise he will never reach FIDE master. That's my hypothesis.
I agree with that. And I would also like to add that experimenting with ideas or even with the different openings, I think can reflect your personality a little bit, because if you like to get out of your comfort zone in openings, it might mean that you also like to get out of your comfort zone. But this is just a theory I have, or that's how I like to think, although I might be wrong.
Okay, there's one question that I would like you now, my friend, to answer, because some of the questions are a little bit funny. Of course, it is the question that is pretty much legit. One of my viewer asks the question: please tell me how to break 1400 rating barrier. I just can't beat the Nepo zombie beat on the chess.com. I love such question. That's why it's up to you.
Oh boy.
What would you advise? What would you advise to such a question?
I would, well, first of all, I would like to say not to practice against the computer, because practice against humans. That would but maybe that could be the answer, because
play humans, not zombies.
Not zombie engines.
Not zombie engines, definitely.
Yes. And well, I don't know. The computer always has some great ideas, so playing against humans, I think might be more worth it. And I think personally, I think if you can, you don't have to calculate, no, but if you notice if something is hanging and you take it, and you can calculate one, two, well, 2, 3 moves ahead, I think you can be far more better than 1400. I mean, in my experience and from what I see, you don't need deep strategies in these levels. You just wait for their blunders.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it may be a very good piece of advice. I fully agree with this. And now let's go into next question. Sometimes chess can be addictive. Why chess can be addictive, and what to do with this? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How to deal with that? I mean, addictive in the sense of a little bit, I would say, negative connotation, right?
Well, so it is a bad thing because getting addicted to chess, because well, of course, chess is not everything in the world, and there are so many other things to explore. And well, it is easy to get addicted to it because well, it depends on what you are doing. So, for example, being addicted to blades, or just studying books, or over the board chess, it might be a little bit different in my opinion, because if you are addicted to bullets and blades, that might be because you are addicted to
Adrenaline.
The adrenaline, yes, that you
that you need to have the boost, right? The boost.
Yes. Yes, right, and that might be different from being addicted to over the board chess. And in my opinion, or well, from what I see, there aren't, or well, I haven't seen so many people who can be addicted to slower time controls.
Yeah, there are not that many. There are not that many. Believe me, they are not hiding.
Yes, and I think if someone is addicted, it's mostly just blitz and bullet, but because it's adrenaline, and you get a fast response, and yes, to that you can be addicted to, and I see why. That's why people get tilted. They cannot stop.
Yeah, if they start just one game. After 4 hours, they say, "Okay, I forgot that 4 hours passed by."
Yes.
Probably this is the symptom. Okay, let's go into next one. What are the disadvantages of playing chess? Disadvantages. Because we are talking about benefits now from the opposite side of the board. What are the disadvantages of playing chess?
I mean, it might be a weird example, but socially talking, it's socially not so well accepted hobby, I would say. As a girl and as a young girl, I got it 1,000 times. Oh, come on, you're playing this weird game that old people play, and you are a girl. Shouldn't you be dancing or just do some girly sport instead?
Maybe modeling, right?
So socially, and or you can be addressed a nerd even socially, because you play chess, which is of course not so great. Well, what else?
There is one big I would say factor that probably is pretty much harmful, no matter if it is chess or not. What would you say as a psychologist?
Sorry again?
What would you say as the psychologist about this factor? What could be the disadvantages of playing chess? And I'll just give you a little bit of tips. Some people use it, but after getting back to the normal world, they suffer a little bit. This is a little bit of trivia. A little bit of challenge. I know you like challenges. I know.
I do like them, but maybe not 11 p.m.
maybe I'll help you, okay? Because we have
Yes,
more
yes,
stuff,
yes.
I'll just help you. The disadvantage of playing chess may be related, it doesn't need to be, but may be related for the symptom of escaping from reality.
Yes,
For
yes.
example, if you have the problems that you need to manage, you need to solve, you need to address, you start playing bullets, right? Because playing bullets will just give you the magical word, you are just into the word, and the problems disappear, right? Magically, like a snapping in the
Yes.
finger. Of course, it's not, therefore, it is one of the biggest disadvantages, if I can say that, about playing chess. Of course, it's not just chess related, because any other domain works the same way, but probably at chess it's pretty much maybe not common, but visible, right? Something like that we can sometimes see that
Yes.
some of the players may play too much, they can play too long, and they can simply not address the reality the way they should, right? For example, at the role of the father, at the role of the, let's say, husband, and so on, they may not realize all of the, let's say, functions or obligations. What about that? Do you agree on that?
Yes, yes, I agree. I think it has those effects. Like, I think almost any video game has, or basically anything can have.
Yeah.
That you just escape from reality, and you dive yourself into this subject. And yes, I see that part indeed.
And even at the chat, there was one person that mentioned that he knows what we are talking about, because he admitted that he suffers at this a little bit. Therefore, I was so like that. Maybe this is one of the key that people play chess. Of course, not all of them, not all of the time, but sometimes it may be a little bit, I would say, dangerous, right? Even I would use this word a little bit harsh, but it will be dangerous to not address the reality the way we should, but instead of that, getting into the chess world, especially playing so-called bullets, right? Because bullets are some like pumping the adrenaline. We are just cutting out the, let's say, external world, and there is some like, we had the problems before we started playing, but as long as we are playing, sometimes we are playing until we drop, right? And when we are getting to the bed or something like that, the problems disappear, even if they do not disappear in a literal way,
Yes.
but we have the feeling about it. Okay, let's go last two questions at this model, and then after that another last model, and after 20 minutes we'll be wrapping up. Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Just
Also
20 minutes, yeah?
yes, yes. I just have a few questions.
Okay, go on.
I'm in my chat has.
Okay.
But there is one. I'm not sure if it's a troll question or not.
We'll see.
Can we take a pill to enhance our chess like Beth Harmon, other substances that help with chess? I'm not a professional in this, so I'm not sure. So, but I don't think there is anything that can enhance your chess.
I think there is, but it is not recommended. For example, there is the very common caffeine. Something like a coffee, right? If you have the caffeine, it boosted the energy, but it's not recommended, not just because of my, let's say, perspective, but rather maybe caffeine and alcohol, right? Let's put it this way. Because even if it boosted the energy, but after some time, the energy is drained way faster. And that's why it's not recommended. To be honest, I was sometimes the witness that some of the players that I was competing against, they just had some kind of shots before the games. And believe me, that at first they play better, not better in an objective sense, but better because they simply, let's say, quiet down, to put it this way, quiet down the fear, right? The fear of losing, the fear of exposure, and so on. And therefore, as long as the fear was not that much related, they could play better. But after some point, the, let's say, alcohol symptoms and alcohol impact was that much, let's say, harmful, that they started playing way worse. After they started playing way worse, they started behaving way worse. And that's why it's completely not recommended. With coffee, of course, unless this is the let's say, fifth coffee with the, let's say, 2 or 3 hours bullets session, it's okay if the coffee is some like a natural, let's say, natural drink, right? If it is not enhancing your power, it's okay. but there was some stuff related to FIDE that they want to have some kind of doping. I'm not sure if you heard about it. Even it was the funny situation that Ivanchuk, probably it was 8 or 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, Ivanchuk was selected for the, let's say, testing of the doping, and when he saw the person wanted to take him into the, let's say, the room, he started running. And he ran away from the hall, and there was the test, right? And therefore it was ridiculous. And that's why I remember that he started some like running. Okay, you can catch me if you can, right? And that's why, yes, there are some boosters, but they are not recommended. A way more recommended, I guess you may agree with me, is just solid practice, right? Some like the responsible action for your improvement. Probably this is a way more recommended. What about that?
Yes, also that, and generally it helps me to, if I bring some snack or some nutrition, drink or food to the game, that can help me keep my mind more fresh than it would be after 2-3 hours without them. So but this is mostly sugar and well, maybe a chocolate,
Yeah.
or anything like that. That's what comes to my mind. Tripp says he had he had more cocaine and meth in mind.
Yeah, it's probably too harsh.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's
just one more question. Sorry,
Right.
another one. Would you say the most important quality in chess is flexibility?
Yes, but there is one more a little bit higher. I would say the growth mindset. The growth mindset. Growth mindset is some like a huge fundamental, and flexibility would be some like a subcategory. Yes, I agree. If one is flexible about all of the stuff he does, no matter in chess, in life, probably the chances of succeed is way higher. Because one of the biggest problems, if we are talking about psychological traits, not chess related, strict related, is the stubbornness. If one is stubborn, no matter the reason, probably he may not be able to succeed, as long as this stubbornness help him in the development. For example, he's stubborn in the sense that he does not believe in theory, and he's inventing new ways of playing. As long as the new way of playing are better than the once they are used for the masters, it could be the, in a quotation mark, positive stubbornness, but it's the exception. But normally, if somebody is stubborn, for example, I have the student and he said, no, I will not practice tactics because I want to be a good strategist. And I tell him, yes, but if you would like to make the operation of the strategical nature, and sometimes some tactics is needed to make it correct, if you will not involve tactics, it will be incorrect. No, I am going to tactics, you will see that I will be next Capablanca. Okay? And after some game, there is some like, thinker teacher. Okay, I promise I'll be doing tactics. I'll be doing tactics next time. And sometimes this could be a little bit of harmful, but in general sense, yes, flexibility as with the meaning of being open for the positive change is one of the key features, but the biggest one is the growth mindset. Okay, and the question that I wanted to address quickly, R45 from my chat asked about what are about performance enhancing pharmaceuticals, how much they can help. To be honest, I do not know that much because I was not that, let's say, interested about it. I know that there are some of them that helps, but first, I do not recommend them. And the second one, the cost of using them, I mean the cost of health, not the money. Cost of using them probably overcome the benefits. That's why I do not recommend them. What I recommend is the natural one. For example, if you have the mental hygiene, for example, to go sleep not too late, for example, not to play all night, it would be a way more efficient than, let's say, taking 5th or 6th coffee just because you need to be woken up. Because at the long term, the coffee will start to make you more harm than the benefits you have. That's why I am pretty much focused over the natural ones. And one stuff that probably may be important, because you just mentioned the chocolate, that's what I wanted to address. The chocolate should be not too much sugar. Not too much sugar. Of course, there could be some sugar, but not too much, because the too much sugar at the longer time control, it may be a little bit harmful. But what I, for example, many times use is the idea about Bobby Fischer, orange juice. And I'm not kidding, I'm having orange juice. And whenever I was the active player over the board, I used to have either orange juice, either the crystal water. I mean, something like without any other, let's say, ingredients. Therefore, just these two. I didn't drink either Coca-Cola, either Pepsi, either any other, let's say, sparkling stuff, not just crystal clear water, because I knew that it was not beneficial to me. Therefore, either the chocolate that is not too much sugar in it, and the juice, and sometimes of course the sandwich and so on, but not too much fat and not too much sugar. That's what I heard from the podcast about nutrition. But it is very general. It is not my recommendation nutrition, because I'm not a data scientist, I'm not a lawyer, and the nutrition speaks by itself.
I have an interesting question.
Go on.
From chat.
Go on.
Nice Giving Bro says, I once heard sex helps women play better chess, but men worse. Have either of you seen any studies to this effect, or was someone pulling my leg?
The first part I didn't address. Can you repeat one more time? The first part, because either it was crazy, either I misheard it.
He says, I once heard sex helps women play better chess, but men worse. And if there are any studies on this, or was someone just
probably this is the question for another channel. Probably it's not us. It's not us who want to address this question, at least from I know. But a little bit more serious, even this question we can address. At football, I know that the football players may in the contract they may have forbidden such activities, to put it this way. And in chess, it works the same. It works the same. If you, I just make global. I do not mean this specific one, but global. If you get too much activity related to either physics or mental, you'll have lack of this if the game would be lasted longer. And that's why if you play longer time control games, you want to be really in the shape. Try not to lose this energy in any way. For example, arguing with your wife, maybe the reason that you will not start the game with the same energy that you would like to do it without arguing, right? And that's why not losing the energy, because in the long term, the energy would be a way more important than the knowledge. Because after, let's say, you are just dropping with the energy very, very low, you can just drop the piece. And no matter if you play the novelty in the Sicilian in the move 25, if you drop the piece in the move 57 or 75, the game is over, right? Because just one mistake and the game collapses. That's what I think. I don't know if we want to address that, or is it okay if we just go further?
I think we can go.
Okay, excellent. Okay, excellent. If we go further, excellent. Now another stuff that I want to ask. This is related to the previous questions, and we just addressed it. But now the question: what makes chess so complex? What makes chess so complex?
I mean, I think all of these factors, that there are so many factors present that that it's really hard to keep all of them in mind, and well also to improve in all of them, but because I think it's really hard to improve in all these factors, your mental toughness, your stamina, your pattern recognition, or memory, and all these, I think. Yes, so yes, because there are so many factors involved, and of course it has something to do with the mind, which it's a mind game, and well, the mind is already complex, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say this is the reason it's so complex.
Thank you very much, because sometimes some players say, "Oh no, chess is an easy game. I can just become a master in a month. I will just show you." And I always say, yes, I know you can prove me wrong, that you can become a master, but I warn you that playing with the engine is forbidden. That's what I recommend, not playing with the engine. And the last question over this part, and the last part in a moment, why chess is that hard to master? Not why chess is so complex, but why chess is that hard to master. Maybe in a general sense, why it is that difficult to get into the FIDE master level. Let's say a little bit more precise. Why it is that much difficult?
Well, I think partially the answer relates to the previous question because it's a really complex game from one part. And well, of course, on the other hand, uh, what we mentioned before, the lack of resources, or not necessarily the lack of resources, but the availability of the resources that you need to get a title in chess.
Okay, thank you very much. It is the let's say model that we have just done. I hope it was not that much difficult, let's say, set of questions, but now I can reveal a little bit because some of the questions may be a little bit weird, but I wanted to make the questions in a variety, not to make a little bit, let's say, too easy, but in the next sense, I wanted to take some of the questions from Reddit, because I was just looking for the questions, and some of them that I thought it would be interesting to address, I just put on the list. And the last one very briefly, because we'll be, let's say, wrapping in 15 minutes, is the idea about thinking by GMs. I mean, GMs like grandmasters, right? Let's talk a little bit about their rules. And first of all, how would you define the difference between thinking like a title player and thinking like a beginner? I do not, of course, insult anybody, but rather in the sense of objective, let's say, difference. If you can spot some of the, let's say, important ideas, important differences, and if you can address that. For example, if you are just thinking like a master, you can see the player that's thinking like a beginner. What are the differences that are the most visible for you? Or maybe for others who are title players as well, that you can, let's say, share with us.
But it's not an easy question.
Yeah, that's why I just invited the expert. That's why.
Oh wow. Let me
It
think.
can be anything. It can be either the evaluation, either visualization, either decision making, even the captures, even the threats, even the path recognition. It's up to you what you address, because take notice that it's the open question, and that's why I would like to start with. In a moment, we'll be going a little bit deeper.
Okay. I think the first thing that came to mind is definitely the pattern recognition, because well, besides the puzzles that the masters made, solved before, they also have the games, because that is also part of the pattern recognition, right? It's not only about the puzzles, but also strategies. Okay, with this pawn structure, I have to do this. And where they have so much bigger basis of knowledge, or bigger knowledge on these matters, that it's easier for them to, and they can make their decisions faster. And maybe I would also say, if you start learning about something new as a beginner, it will take more time to collect these or understand these new concepts, because you hear this fact, that fact, this one. While if you have a wider knowledge on something as a master, you can maybe even build your knowledge faster than someone from zero, because it's easier to add knowledge to something that you already know a lot about than to something which is zero.
Yeah.
So this is maybe one thing. Mm,
Are there any
other
changes related to the efficiency of searching, efficiency of looking for the moves? Maybe that's the point.
mhm. Yes, I think there should be. Because well of course this pattern recognition is not only just okay, oh, that's a pin, and we recognize the motive, but it will also maybe activate it further, and okay, this is what's happening, okay, this is it, and this is what should happen after this, because I realize, okay, in this kind of positions, um, this is what should happen based on experience,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore decision making will be much faster, and of course these masters will be able to focus on the right thing faster than a beginner would in a position. Yes, maybe they can get there, but it will take much more time than than a master.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, it looks like that the pattern recognition, the ability to filtering out and building the knowledge based on the fundamentals and the experience gained over this process is one of the biggest factors differentiating the beginners and masters. Did I understand it correct?
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you very much, because it is one of the most I would say most enigmatic topic. That's why I wanted to know what do you think about it. And now let's get to the last part, because we are just having just 10 minutes. It will be pretty much quickly. What about let's say talking very briefly, some like bullet points again about some of the statements. I will just put the statements and you will comment quickly. Is that okay?
Okay,
Okay,
we'll
let's
try.
go. We are just talking about Grandmaster's thinking, and the first of this statement is Grandmaster. By the way, the statements are from the book that was written by psychologist and from the by the master Amartya Avni, and psychology. No, it was not psychology. It was the Grandmaster's mind. By the way, if anybody wants to have a look, this is the book. It is chapter 13. I just extracted the stuff because I thought that it may be pretty interesting for us. And the first one is the following. Grandmasters always put the question what before the question how. And please comment on that.
I mean, it's hard because I'm not a grandmaster.
Yeah, but I mean in the sense of being master, because you are the master. Of course, you are not grandmaster as yet, but probably you know about it. If you didn't, you will not be a master.
Yes, well, I think I would agree with this statement, because the what is more important than the how first, because if you don't know what, then you can't know the how.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, because yes, what how, you know, what are we talking? Yes.
I'm just showing the book for the viewer.
Oh, okay.
For the Grandmaster Minds, Amartya Avni. This is the book. Okay, let's go into the next one, because we are just having a few points of them. They are very important and pretty much interesting, I guess, for the audience as well. The second one is Grandmasters implement prophylactic thinking in profound and systematic way.
Could you repeat it?
Yes, grandmasters implement prophylactic thinking. For example, they try to predict the, let's say, the development of the games, and if they see something like a dangerous line, they either stop it or strike first, right? And they do it in a systematic way. They do it all of the time the same. They're just not making so like a random shots, right? Or random attacks, most often related to the beginners. What about that?
Yes, true. I mean, you cannot be too random in chess. You can be, you can explore, but most of the time it will be systematic, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. Next one. Grandmasters manage their thinking in a focused and economical way.
Yes, because if you want to compete and play over the board chess, you have to, and these games can last 3 to 6 hours or even more sometimes. Then you cannot go on full energy from moment from the first minute. You have to keep your energy a little bit. So yes, you have to. You shouldn't waste your energy.
Yeah, therefore they need to manage the energy the best way, not to lose that pretty quickly. Okay, another one. 4. Grandmasters employ logical reasoning. Maybe I'll just expand a little bit because it sounds a little bit obvious probably for you. Logical reasoning in the sense that they try to find the cause by questioning with the logic way. For example, how, why, and so on. Not, or maybe not why, maybe if so, right? For example, the rules that are the most important in logic, and they do not use some like, oh, maybe this is the key, or maybe the why. They are just rather trying to, let's say, crack the positions with the logical reasoning.
Yes, I think it can be true. Although, again, it's not something that happens all the time, because of course, if you want to be creative, you can have a different approach to these. To a position, and you can't always reason logically why I want to do this, but based on your experience, intuition, and on your knowledge, you can just feel the position, and you can't necessarily explain why.
Yeah, and probably to what you're talking about right now is the intuition. Intuition is the, let's say, experience based on the previous stat we were talking about. Pattern recognition, experience as the analysis, then the methods of assessing, evaluating, and visualizing the position, and the application into practice, right? And based off that, this is some like the feeling. At this position, probably this is a bad move. I do not know why, but I will check it out in a moment, right? And this is the feeling that something is wrong, because there is some like in the back of my mind that says that probably this can be the mistake or the trap. Is that okay? Okay, thank you very much. Next one, just 2 more. Grandmasters validate their assessment against a host of subjective criteria.
What does that mean?
Subjective criteria means that I would like to play this type of moves because I want to do so, not because of the objective assessment, because I would like to do so. It's my, I would say, a little bit wishful thinking, right? That I want to do it because it's me, not because of the position, because it's me. And grandmasters validate their assessment against a host of subjective criteria. For example, if they are having the position that is difficult, they do not say, no, the position is okay, I'll just defend it, no problem, right? They are just a little bit, let's say, I will just put it maybe different way, they are pretty much back to reality, even if they dislike or hate their position. They are super, let's say, harsh towards the position, not something like thinking that, oh, position is great, even if position is very bad. Do you agree on that? That they are rather a little bit harsher than being too much optimistic about their position, especially if the objective assessment doesn't allow for that. Did I express it clear enough, or maybe a little bit?
I'm thinking, and maybe it might be my personal mistake in chess, but I personally, if I am in a bad position, I can talk for myself, not as a grandmaster, of course, and it might be my mistake as a chess player, but I personally don't like to think that, oh no, this position is terrible, when should we resign finally, and just be harsh on this, and be too defensive because of this, because I think it can have that psychological effect that if you judge the position too harsh. But I rather try to try to be optimistic in a way that, okay, that might give me a possibility in this position, and I should try for that. Yeah, the position might be terrible, but okay, that can still give me something, and I kind of have to be optimistic about it. Otherwise, if I don't believe in it, then there is I think there is less chance that it will succeed
Mm-hmm.
in a way. Although I might see it wrong, and I'm not sure if grandmasters think this way, but this is how I think.
Mm-hmm. And probably you are right more than you think. I'm not. It sounds a little bit funny, but the ability to assess the position in a harsh way doesn't mean the grandmaster is not optimistic. And that's why, because I was very closely listening to you. You just mentioned the position was terrible, and that's what I mean. That you see the position evolution as terrible, but it
Yes.
doesn't mean you collapse, you resign, you quit, you're upset.
Yes.
No, it's not the key. But you saw, and you accept the position is terrible. Not that you cannot play this position, but you know position is terrible. You do not say no. Position is great.
Yes.
I am
Yes,
down
of
the
course.
rook, but the position is fantastic. Guys, I'll just show you how to win without the rook. Look, right? That's what I mean. Of
Right.
course, I'm just trolling a
Right,
little
right.
bit, but what I mean that being the objective in the sense that if the position is horrible, I say yes, position is horrible. I do not blame myself, I do not kick myself out, but rather accept the fact that I am, let's say, down a piece and I need to make some like a miracle to draw the position, because otherwise I'll not make the norm over the master, let's say, right? And that's why
Yes,
you can
right.
have the terrible position, but the idea about being optimistic, idea about thinking about the position in a positive way is perfectly fine, because it's some like another factor, right? Okay, and the last one, give me a second. The last one is the 6th point. Grandmasters adapt to change circumstances quickly and effectively. This is the flexibility that we are talking about. It is the same. The question that was to me from the chat, right? That I mentioned the growth mindset is the biggest one, and is the flexibility one of the key ideas? Remember? And do you agree on
Yes.
that? The grandmasters adapt, or grandmaster says in just the sense masters, right? Masters adapt to changed circumstances quickly and effectively.
Yes. Yes, I would say yes.
Okay. Therefore, we are just having the part about grandmasters, and now we just skip 40 questions, not 40 questions, 40 research on psychology, because this time we need to, let's say, wrap up in a moment. Just bullet points for the last part. Are you ready? 3 minutes for the bullet points.
Yes, yes.
Very quickly, very quickly. Take notice, this is the fastest part of the interview, the last and the fastest. Therefore, just do not analyze too deeply. Try to limit the depth of the stockfish of your mind into the level of 2. No more than that. Okay?
Okay.
Level of 2, because the level 1 is yes, the level 2 is no. That's it.
Okay. Okay.
Get set, ready, go.
Yes.
Playing man or woman? What do you prefer?
Man.
Okay, playing white or black?
White.
Over the board or online?
Over the board.
Winning against international master or drawing against grandmaster?
Winning international master.
Okay, winning the position or flagging the opponent?
Winning the position.
Teaching chess or learning chess?
Teaching chess.
It was the analysis over the depth 3. I saw that. Okay, now a little bit wider, not deeper, now wider. Favorite color?
Oh boy. Blue.
Favorite thing?
Favorite what?
Favorite thing?
Chess.
Okay. Favorite hero?
Favorite hero? Batman.
Okay. Favorite activity?
Traveling.
Okay. And the last 6. Running or swimming?
Swimming.
Riding a bike or a car?
Bike.
Watching or listening?
Watching.
Reading or playing?
Playing.
Thinking or sleeping? Yes, this is for the end. It's not random. It's deliberately.
Thinking.
Okay. It was the last one. Now we are just having all of the models. Of course, I just have the, let's say, the points that we can just continue for the next 8 or 10 hours. That's why I told you that I was preparing for 5 days. I'm not kidding. I'm really serious.
That now.
But I wanted to make it as best as possible. And of course, I apologize for all of the parts that was not that much, let's say, fluent, not that much smooth. Probably Maurice Ashley would make it a little bit more smoother, but I literally don't care because the interview speaks by itself.
Right.
Right? Okay, and now let's the final points. What about today's meeting? How did you experience that? How did you feel? Was it challenging? A little bit of feedback from your side.
Yes, sure. I definitely enjoyed talking about this subject. I had a really long day today. I did not have a lot of free time, and that might add to the fact that I am tired by the end of the interview and not from the beginning of the interview, but I still enjoyed talking. I can again repeat myself. You always emphasize how expert I am, but I don't feel like an expert because.
By the way, interrupt for a second, just for a brief second. There is the Dunning-Kruger effect. The better you are, the less you are sure about your strength or expertise, and I'm pretty serious. And I have the same because, of course, not in just in the other domain. That the more I know, the more I understand, the worse I feel, in the sense that I feel some like a little bit of cheater, in the sense that no, everything is some like it's impossible. I cannot be that far, and therefore it's a normal symptom, and therefore I just treat you like a master because you are a master. You achieved a master status, and you achieved master title. Therefore, there is no reason not to treat you like that. Sorry about it.
I understand, and I know this because I also learned about it when I was at the university. But I always feel like I have the exception that who doesn't know who is not under this effect, but it's really not good enough in these things. Yes, and well, it was a really interesting interview, and I definitely learned a lot of things, especially not from the reading, because I also did some reading, but from what he sent mostly. But it was really nice to talk through these interviews and understand them deeper, and talk about this, and I always like deep, meaningful conversations. So I definitely enjoyed this interview.
Thank you very much. I'm pretty much honored and very happy because I love such people like you, with the passion, with the perseverance, with the wisdom, with the experience, and the people who are wanted to share their expertise, because you have a lot of this, and that's why I'll try to give you the conditions to, let's say, show it, and I guess we just succeeded. And in the meantime, I'm super happy that you accepted the invitation, because I know how hard it is sometimes to find the time, and especially at the weekend, because at the weekend probably many people would like to rest, and you just accepted the invitation and say, yes, I want to share my knowledge, my experience with our community. Therefore, I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I thank you very much for inviting me and having this conversation with me. It was really useful for me. I know for me it was very useful, and I hope it was useful for our chat too, and for you as well.
Yeah, I think as well that chat, either yours or mine, or maybe both, are pretty much happy about it as well, and I'm super happy that we could do it again, and I'm very grateful that you provided that much insight, that much, let's say, new perspective, and all of the explanation, and I'm really grateful that we could do it again, and very happy that we can just did it. And even though it was planned for just 2 hours, we just crossed 3 hours. Therefore, yes. Thank you very much for the bonus 1 hour. I know it was a little bit of time trouble, but we get through this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a great time. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.